No one has anywhere else to go.
Environment Committee meeting. My name is Jeffrey LaFrancois. I'm the co-chair, proud co-chair of this committee. And it's our first meeting of this committee in 2 months. We'll be taking the agenda item by item as it's laid out, and I'm going to open the meeting with some guidelines that we as a board have taken up based on the governor's executive order, and also based on the practices we've undertaken since we've gone virtual. As per the governor's executive order, we are running this community board meeting remotely, and it's being recorded and transcribed. A recording of this meeting is being posted on our board's YouTube page as we present. We'll run this meeting generally as follows. Everybody besides the speaker or presenter should and will stay muted throughout the meeting. Members of the public who have joined through the online link will be able to ask questions and or make a brief statement on an item after the presentation and after the committee has had an opportunity to ask clarifying questions, much like we run our regular practice when we're all next to each other in person. After the presentation is over, I'll inquire if the committee has any clarifying questions. Committee members will signify they have a question by pressing the raised hand key, which you can find when you click on the participants tab next to in the panelist section next to your name. Let's see here. We can also, you can request to speak through the chat button as well. Oh, that actually, no, correction. Only use the raise hand feature. We're on Zoom, not GoToMeeting.
There's a Q&A section though. So.
It's okay, thank you. After all committee questions have been answered, we'll take questions and statements from the public. A member of the committee will report on any testimony or correspondence that MCB4 meeting has received beforehand. I will note that stuff this evening. If a member of the public wants to ask a question or make a brief statement on an agenda item, they will also need to press the raised hand button on Zoom or request.
Or is it *9 for those of us who don't have a video?
Exactly, that would be *9 on the phone, Gwen, correct, thank you.
Right.
We'll allow each member to speak, each member of the public to speak unmuted and put them back on mute. Following the public comment portion, the committee will begin their discussion and will conclude the discussion with a vote on the recommendation. My goal for this, to simplify the vote, will be to ask if there's any objections or if there's any abstentions or present not eligible. And hearing likely expecting those to be few, it'll make the vote hopefully more efficient. When the agenda is finished, we will adjourn and we'll close out this meeting accordingly. Janine Lowell, did I miss anything on the overall there?
I don't think so.
No, I think you got
Okay.
it.
So with that, I'm going to introduce the committee first to my co-chair, who I can't find in my Hollywood Squares right now, but Marty DeCat. Thank you, Marty. If the committee wants to unmute so you can say hello as I'm going to go down our list now.
I was waving, that's good enough.
That's fine. Leslie Murphy.
Hi, guys.
Thank you. Gwen Billig.
Here.
Marty, we've got you. Tina, DC.
It's not that hard. D. Felice Antonio.
It stopped as soon as I said it. Brett.
Yeah,
Got it.
here, but I gotta duck out at 6:45, but
Yes, thank you.
by 8:30 if I can.
Sally Greenspan.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Sally. David Haloka.
Hi, everyone.
David.
Hi, David.
Blake. Thank you.
Hi.
Chris LeBron.
Christopher LeBron is here. Hi, I'm just correcting my name so that way everyone can see me on the public end.
Thank you. I am here. Jean Danielle.
Hello, everybody.
Thank you. Alan.
Good evening. Nice to see everyone.
Thank you. Brad, are you here?
Good evening. Present.
Oh, good. And that is, Rhonda is not here. So with that, thank you, everybody. We'll move to the first item on our agenda with a presentation from the Hudson River Park Trust regarding the progress of Pier 97.
Right. Okay, pleased to be back here with CB4 to give an update on our Pier 97 project. Welcome to my home office / bedroom. When we were last together on this project in November, we presented a schematic level design. Since then, we've been to the Public Design Commission, who received it positively, but did give us some minor comments that I think made the project a little better. And we've added Toshiko Mori Architects to the team to develop the building component. And we've also have some new information regarding the historic ship location. So what we're going to do is we'll begin by having Melk, our design prime, go over the changes that we've made to the landscape area in response to the Public Design Commission comments. And so with that, Ian, if you could start your bit.
Great. Hello, everyone. Nice to see you all again. Hope everyone is well. Last time we met with you was back in November, and today we're going to just do a brief recap for the benefit of some of you for the project. Next slide, please. Just to give you some context again of where this project is. This is more for the benefit of the public tuning in now. This project is in the northernmost extent of the Hudson River Park, nestled between Clinton Cove and the southern side of Riverside Park South, pretty much in alignment with West 57th Street. Next slide. It's also proximate to Central Park, a 15 minutes walk uphill, and it's also near other community amenities such as DeWitt Clinton Park, Gertrude Ederle Recreation Center, and Lincoln Center. Next slide. Next slide. So this is the running tally of the public engagement that we've done with the community to date. May 14th is today. So we've had a good amount of time spent with the community, and we feel like, you know, we know all of you well, and so far everybody's received this project with open arms, and we're thrilled about that. Next slide. So just to give you a recap of the schematic design that you saw last time when we were together in November. Next slide. This was and still is, the most recent design scheme. You can see Pier 97 highlighted at the bottom, Piers 98 and 99 to the north. Just want to point out that the actual project boundary includes the frontages in front of Pier 98 and 99, Pier 98 being Con Edison and Pier 99 being DSNY, the Department of Sanitation. And we're doing improvements along that corridor as well. Next slide. Some components, just to zoom in here, going from east to west, which means on this picture going from right to left, we have an entry plaza, a playscape for children, an activity field sized for U7 activities, a flexible gathering area, sun lawn, sunset deck, a belvedere and an overlook. Programmatically, the park is designed to have all of the sports and activity program justified to the east, with more of the park and immersive program to the west. Next slide. This is a bird's eye view looking towards the northeast from the Hudson River, where you can see all the topographic manipulation that we've introduced in the design. Next slide. And this is showing the entry to the children's playscape from the upland. So if you're walking, down southward from Pier 98 and you coming towards the entrance of Pier 97, this will be one of the possible entrances that you could take, if you have children, for instance. Next slide. This is a bird's eye view of that playscape, showing in the foreground a splash pad and water feature for children, young children, toddlers, and older children. Next slide. This is another bird's eye view as we start to walk west. This is showing the activity field sized for U7. Next slide.
Ian, can I interrupt you for 1 second on that?
Yeah,
is that color scheme what you're going to be using? Is it going to be a blue field?
Blue field, yes.
Thank you.
Okay. And this, maybe some of you remember, this is what we presented last time as being the choice that we offer the public, whether or not you can decide to go directly west towards the end of the pier or go right and find yourself in a more immersive botanical zone that's shady, lots of visual interest, places to sit and read in quiet. Next slide. So if you move into that more secluded zone, we call this the flexible gathering space. You'll see the canopy structures that we introduced to you last time. You're able to, either continue your journey, to the left. You could go walk up the stairs to the Belvedere. Next slide. This is showing, one way to get up to the Belvedere. This is a seating area that's about 7 feet higher than the base of the stairs. Next slide. You're also able to get up to that Belvedere through a sloped walkway that goes around the back side of the flexible gathering space. Next slide. And that takes you to the exact same location. So we have an intentional convergence of circulation at the top of the stair and at the top of the sloped walkway to get you at the exact location. And then what you have is either a sun lawn to choose from to lay in, to relax in, or you could sit and read and sunbathe on, the lounge chairs that we have designed along the northern edge there. Suitable for tandem seating and groups and children and whatnot. And then if you continue walking down towards the west, next slide please, we have the overlook. And the overlook is another elevated area that's about 11 feet higher than the surface down below. And this gives you a beautiful panoramic view of the Hudson River to the north, west, and south. Next slide. And then here we have another bird's eye view looking towards the northeast of the project again. You can see the Midtown skyline in the background and tip of the overlook in the foreground. Next. And if you recall, we designed an adult slide, which we imagine is going to be quite popular for children and grown-ups alike. Next slide. Showing you how you could get down quickly from that 11-foot overlook down to the lower portion of the park inside this wooded zone. And you're able to, come back up to the top through these stairs here if you'd like. Next slide. Some more views looking towards the northwest. Next slide. Next slide. And then this is the sunset deck, which has movable tables and chairs. It's also elevated about 2 feet above the surrounding landscape. It has a ramp to get to it, which is ADA accessible, and also seating edges integrated into planters. Next slide. So canopy designs. So part of the reason why we're back with you today is because we've had to make an adjustment to our canopies. As we mentioned before, we were still under PDC review last time. We've since been to PDC. They've given us some of their comments for the canopies. Next slide. And as you recall, we were showing last time, next slide, a canopy design that was basically kind of an undulating faceted form. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. Okay, next slide. And essentially what PDC came back to us with comments was really about the structure and about maintenance. So we took those considerations to heart. Next slide. And we developed a new structural system based on a tetrapod. This tetrapod is much more efficient. Next slide. What it allows us to do is, depending on what's necessary for the particular condition, whether that be creation of height, manipulation of shade, we're able to manipulate these tetrapods in order to efficiently create the desired effect. Next slide. And then here you can see on the top, the structural supports, the tetrapods, and then on the bottom, the same with the canopy on top, the skin, the perforated roof, if you'd like to think of it like that. Next slide. And then here you see the result. So it's different than you saw last time, but similar in vein. where it still keeps the same notion of angularity and articulation, perhaps even more articulated now. We're pleased with it. So we hope the community also likes it as well. Next slide. This is a view in the Flex gathering space looking back towards the stair. Next slide. This is a view if you're sitting beneath it and an effect of the dappled light that would be created by the perforated canopy overhead. Next slide. This is at the top of the stairs looking towards the this integrated seating with half of it covered by shade by these objects. Next slide. And a view again looking towards the northeast, showing the effect of the canopy over the seating area. Next slide. Another view looking towards the south. Okay. Another reason why we're showing this to you today is an update to the entry mound. Next slide. If you recall, we had an idea for a sculptural entry mound that was planted. Colloquially, we called it the tree vase. Next slide. And you can see why we called it the tree vase. Next slide. This was intended to anchor and be an identifiable marker as you enter the project. This also went under PDC review. They had some comments to us and we've made some revisions. Next slide. Primarily related to maintenance. So we went back, spoke with HRPT, and we now have another option that still serves as an anchor, but in a different way. Next slide, please. You can see here, this is the new configuration. It's in almost exactly the same location. Next slide. The difference now is that rather than having an arced mound, we took the vocabulary of boulders that are found throughout the playscape, and we brought them out, into this element, into the entry mound feature. That creates a bit of a continuity between these two areas, which works quite well. Next slide. And in terms of components, we have the sculptural boulders that sit on the inside, right? It's surrounded by planting, low shrubs, and also overstory trees. And now we even have a seat wall, so it's a place also for people to sit upon entry to the park. Next slide. And you can see here that it still has, the same presence at the entry, although a bit different, right? But nevertheless, it fits within the vocabulary of the park and still suitably serves as an entrance to Pier 97. Next slide. And here you can see a little preview of the comfort station that you'll see next. Next slide. This is looking towards the northwest. It's the Route 9A in the background and Via 57. Next slide. And there you have it.
Okay. It's Kevin again. I just wanted to say a few words about the building before we introduce Toshiko Mori, who's the architect for the building. First, just a quick reminder of what the program is. The program is a public restrooms, a walk-up concession, meaning no interior seating area, maintenance office and yard, and a utility room for the various pumps, meters, and things that we need to drive the pier and the building. So one important thing I wanted the community board to be aware of is that we analyzed every square foot of this building to make sure that it was really needed. For us, the open space in the park comes first. So we really struggled to make this as efficient a plan as possible. So I wanted to be sure you knew that we did that. And I also wanted to let you know that there are some real challenges with this piece of the project. It's not an easy task to put a building here. Number one, it's in a floodplain. And number two, we want to have as much flow, pedestrian flow in front of the building on the esplanade. So we have a pretty narrow, long building. And the uses of the building like the bathroom and the utility space, they don't lend themselves to a lot of windows. It could be a pretty opaque building. So we were concerned about ending up with a heavy, opaque building between all the windowless rooms and the floodproofing. So this is not what we want. What we want is a building that has a presence, but is pretty light, something noticeable, but it doesn't dominate the park, and something that recognizes the kind of industrial context, but kind of rises above it. So this is not an easy task. So what we did was we reached out to Toshiko Mori's office, who's pretty well known for making really elegant buildings out of challenging circumstances. And she agreed to take on the task. So Toshiko Mori's office is a new member to the team for you guys, but she's been on board, I think since, I want to say January. And she will walk you through her solution to our building problem.
Thank you very much. And I thank you very much for meeting us tonight in these difficult circumstances. I hope everybody's staying healthy and safe. So when we received this assignment and to be invited to be part of a team, we were actually delighted to see that there's a comfort station, which is probably in one of the most prominent locations in the world on waterfront on 57th Street, sandwiched by Via Gingillis, amazing Via 57 West. And then also the comfort station, the comfort station next to a Con Ed institution, Con Ed facilities, and also next to the West Side Highway. So it's a very challenging site. And also this is where Hudson Park starts. So it has to be a marker, but at the same time, it needs to have a transition quality between all these elements. It has to have a presence, but also be a background to amazing activities that Milk has produced for the park. Next slides, please. This is, okay, so it really shows the location as it is. It's now a white rectangle. And I think we can go through with you in detail how we arrived at this scheme. But just to show you our aspiration for this site is to come up with an elegant building in which in our mind conceptually exists between sky and water. And it will have a mutable quality, which means that instead of having something solid and something heavy on the site, to have a light quality, materiality is important. And so that we choose a material and design in which reacts with different conditions of light, different climate. It will have a different profile, meaning features, expressions. On cloudy day, it will look very different on sunny day. And our wish is that the building, which might look a little bit like a mirage, and sometimes on Hudson River in a foggy day, you have a little bit of mirage. It looks like a presence, but disappears and comes up. So we were really helping to achieve some more phenomenal-like building to come. So it will actually command attention, but in a sense, its background and expression of features is more fleeting. And then you will experience and see it fresh as it goes through different time of day and different seasons. Next slides, please. So the building programs, we have a public restrooms, walk-up cafe, plumbing room for park infrastructure, comfort station, maintenance shop, and service backyard and field office. So it is a utilitarian building. And I think our challenge is to how to make it elegant and attractive, but it's incredibly functional and robust, a building on a floodplain. And David Jobart from our office, associated in our office, is project architect. He will take you through the building in detail to show you how we plan to achieve this effect. Next slide, please.
Hi, everyone. I'm David with Toshiko's office, as she mentioned. And after the overview from Toshiko, I can take us through the details of the comfort station for the next group of slides here. So what we're looking at here is a brief plan and elevation view of the project. on the east facade of the building. And to speak to Toshiko's point a little bit, the concept for the building was to allow each of the different program areas of the building to be reflected in their own volumes for the project, rather than having one large box. This allows the building to be broken down to a smaller scale that relates to humans a little bit more, and also allows the building to reflect the quality of the skyline and the city. So you can see, looking from left to right on the building elevation, moving from the cafe, bathroom, plumbing room, field office, maintenance shop, and service yard, that there's a change in heights here. So the function of the building is reflected in the way that it's organized, which allows it to have a very individual quality. And the facade of the building will be wrapped with aluminum panels, which have a very matte reflective quality, which allows it to pick up different lighting qualities. So like Toshiko was mentioning, on a cloudy day, it might be a little bit more subtle, and on a sunny day, it can pick up different lighting qualities. The reflectivity is matte, so we don't anticipate any overly bright reflections or anything of the like. And in addition to the building envelope itself, there is a louver system that wraps around all 4 facades of the building, which ties those individual volumes together into a cohesive whole. And these louvers are rotated in a way that change their angles, which allow a bit of visibility through some of the volumes that are lowered and some are raised. So it's a bit of a scrim that provides some opacity and some transparency. And these louvers will be surfaced with a very interesting color that is iridescent. So from certain angles, they will appear slightly more grayish, and from certain angles, they will appear more bluish. And we'll be able to show you some of that in images a little bit further into the presentation. So if we can go to the next slide.
I'm sorry, one moment.
Now we're all staring at you, Janine.
I know, I'm sorry. This thing froze a little bit. Give me one moment. Okay, can we see it?
Great, that's perfect. So to change gears a little bit from the design overview of the project and to jump straight into the details, one of the more unique aspects of the project is the fact that it is in a flood zone very close to the edge of Manhattan, on the edge in fact. So as a result, the building does need to be dry flood proofed. That's a flood proofing strategy. That means we keep all the water out of the building. Next slide, please. And the way we're achieving that are these individual flood barriers shown in green here on the slide that are installed in front of each of the openings of the building. Those are doors and windows. And in order to get out of the building in the event of a flood, there's also a temporary stair that is stored in the building that is installed that you can use to essentially walk over and down one of the flood barriers. They're fairly high to account for the flood elevation, which is 6 feet. So that is a unique aspect of the project, and they're intended to be employed in a fairly quick time when a flood is anticipated or comes on. Next slide, please. One of the other aspects of the project that we're very happy about is the inclusion of solar panels that are installed in a net metering configuration. The panels themselves are configured in a way to power lighting and receptacle loads for approximately a 7,600 square foot office space. In the event that the panels provide more power than is used due to the net metering, that power is then funneled back to Con Ed, back into the grid, and no batteries or additional equipment are needed for this. So in that case, HRPT is only billed by Con Ed for the power used, or the net power. So essentially that is, net power is building usage minus PV power production. Next slide, please. This is just a brief overview of the elevations of the building. The south elevation on the top left, looking at a cafe that will be on the south side of the building. The north elevation just to the right of that, looking at the edge of the service yard. And then the primary east elevation, which is what most people will see from the city and the promenade and the drive there. Next slide, please. And here's a little bit more detail about the configuration of the louvers. On the northeast and south facades, the louvers start at 12 feet above grade. The louvers start at the very bottom in a flat configuration. And as you move up through the louvers, they each rotate incrementally to an angle of about 60 degrees. This provides a really nice balance of transparency and opacity. And it does allow you to see through the louvers beyond to the envelope of the building, as well as through the building and the locations where the roof is lowered through that skyline effect that we've talked about. On the west facade of the building, because it's not accessible to the public, we've decided to carry the louvers all the way down to the base of the building, which we think provides a very nice view looking back from the pier onto the building, and really accentuates the effect of the rotational louvers and the iridescent finish that's applied to them. Next slide, please. Here's a little detail about the facade panels themselves. It's an aluminum clad material. It's essentially aluminum composite that has aluminum on two sides and a composite insulating material on the inside. It's a very durable and sturdy material. The panel widths are flexible, so we're able to design those in a way that are able to wrap in a very consistent manner across the different volumes of the project. Next slide, please. These are a couple of different angles looking at the materials for the aluminum composite material. Similar to what Toshiko was speaking about with the building changing its appearance depending on your point of view and the time of day. The angle that you're looking at the aluminum, just due to the very matte reflective quality, allows the building to take on some of the color of the environment as well as your point of view. Next slide, please. And this is a rough mock-up from the louver manufacturer, just showing a typical configuration of how they're applied to the building envelope and their rotational effects. And these are all unfinished, but just looking for the basic geometric qualities. And on the left, we also have a brief swatch of the iridescent color, which I think we can look at in a little bit more detail next. Next slide, please. And here are a couple of photographs of the iridescent material. So again, depending on your point of view, the material can look a little bit gray when you rotate the material, which also happens just inherently due to the rotation of the louvers and their curved surfaces. You get a very different color depending on your point of view. And I think we also have a video that we can pull up to show the changing effect of this iridescent material.
Yeah, maybe 1 second.
So I think the idea is to have, it has a blue tint to it, but it also has a gray and then has a little bit of mauve. So it really works with the coloration of a sky.
It doesn't want to load on Zoom for some reason.
Maybe we have to verbally explain it. So one of the reasons is like a louvers is more frontal, open, you can see into the building. It closes down at it, but which actually allows you to see through into the sky. So that the color of the louvers and color of the sky can be blended in at point. So it's how it turns is that it actually creates the illusion that you're really looking at, and not frontally, but when you're looking up. And we hope that the louver is somehow is going to blend into the sky and somewhat disappear and gives a very soft horizontal edge on top of the building.
Maybe I could help explain what this, oh, there it is.
Yeah.
So what this is magic paint, basically. It changes color depending on how you look at it.
That's great. I think that gives a great overview of the changing color of the louver panels. Thanks for loading that video.
We wanted to be sure the community board saw that before they see the renderings, because the still renderings will seem a little silver to you, but actually it's a very dynamic kind of subtle color. So, sorry, Toshiko, go ahead.
David.
Yeah, I think if we can get the presentation back, we can proceed. So you can move on to the next slide, which sits in full screen. So we're going to speak a little bit briefly about the signage. As is standard with the other Hudson River Park projects, we identify the building with the standard typography and language as seen throughout the rest of the park. On the south facade, we identify the specific pier, Pier 97. And on the north side of the building, we have the overall Hudson River Park signage that can be seen from the promenade as well as driving south along the highway. And this building really acts as a beacon and a way to introduce not only this project, but the overall park system. Due to the louver configuration on this project and the way that it wraps around the facade, we had the opportunity to basically create unique signage. So rather than applying a standard sign over the louvers, we've integrated the signage directly into the louvers with basically a colored material that slips around the geometry of them. So it's a very integrated approach that blends in with the specific building rather than just something that's applied to the facade. Next slide, please. And here we also have signage for the cafe itself. This will be something that'll be determined by the tenant who ultimately comes on board to operate the cafe. There'll be signage on the glass on both the south and east facade of the building at the corner of the cafe. Next slide, please. And here we also have a couple of amenities that the building provides. One is a standard drinking fountain that also has a bottle filler for all the cyclists and joggers along the path there. In addition to that, we also have a bicycle service station, which is comprised of a rack for bicycles, as well as a air filling station and various tools for people to provide basic maintenance on their bicycles as needed. Next slide, please. So the next group of slides we'll be looking at are a few different images of the project from several different vantage points. We're starting here from the south looking north, and you can see the signage we were discussing earlier of Pier 97 located on the top corner of the louvers. So we have Pier 97 to the left and the highway to the right in this image. Next slide, please. And here we're from the path, jogging path, looking west towards the building. So we're seeing the east facade. Again, you have the aluminum panels on the base of the building with a very matte reflection. And we have the angled louvers above that, kind of creating some transparency and opacity for the top half of the building, and some views looking through in the areas where the building has a lowered roof. Next slide, please. And here we're next to the building, looking south. You can see some of the material qualities of the building, as well as the entrance to the restroom and the bicycle maintenance station and water fountain there with the jogging path and bicycle path to the left. Next slide, please. And this is a view from the highway as we drive south, seeing Pier 97 for the first time with the signage of Hudson River Park, again, acting as a beacon, not only for our building and the pier, but also for the overall park system. So this is what viewers would see as they're driving along down the highway. Next slide, please. And this view shows a view of the south side of the building as you were at the very head of the Pier 97 park itself. Next slide, please. And our last slide is just showing a selection of lighting products that we're looking at. So we have various flood and point lights that are going to be applied to the underside of the building, and along the very top edge of the louver, running continuously around all 4 facades, we have downlights that are situated just behind the louver, which will cast light down in a backlit fashion and create a really nice luminous effect that also creates a halo at the base of the building. So with that, that's the last slide for the comfort station. And I think we can proceed with the historic vessel section of the presentation.
Okay. So when last we presented in November, we had the idea that the historic vessel would be located in on the northwest corner of the pier. I think you can open up the next slide, please. As time has gone on and as we've looked at things, we actually think a better location is on the south side to the east end, because the view is much better, number one. And number two, the activity of the Con Ed barges going in and out creates some water disturbance with the wakes, but also puts our historic vessel in a pretty vulnerable spot. It's not a good parking spot for your historic vessel. So we're thinking, could you go to the next slide, please? Locating it basically across from the synthetic turf field, about 115 feet away from the bulkhead. We don't know what ship is going here, so I'm going to turn it over to Rashi, who is managing the RFEI process for finding a historic ship for this location.
Good evening, everyone. So here's an update on the RFEI. The Trust had issued a request for expressions of interest for historic vessels in late 2019, offering a total of 4 berths for long-term historic vessel docking. 2 at Pier 25, 1 at Pier 26, and 1 at Pier 97. So the Pier 25 berths have already been awarded, but we are still in the open procurement process for Piers 26 and 97. The uses proposed in the RFEI responses generally range from museum excursions, environmental and educational programs, depending on the pier location. Additionally, a food and beverage concession is permitted at Pier 97. So the selected vessel is required to also do free educational and cultural programming. It's likely that the vessel that comes in at Pier 97 has a concession which is similar to Grand Banks at Pier 25 in the park. But given the shallow water depth and the sea permit standards, finding the right vessel has been challenging for Pier 97. So where we are now is that we have 1 vessel that might be able to come in, but we are still in the due diligence process with them. Thanks. Back to you, Kevin.
Well, that concludes our presentation. So now we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, everybody from all teams on board for that presentation across multiple topics. Alan, you were the first person I saw up on the committee with their hand up. I'm going to reserve some of my comments. Do you want to kick us off this evening?
Sure. Thank you, Jeffrey. Absolutely beautiful project, really, in every sense. 21st century project. You hit all the points that I would have thought of and what I think was discussed in our previous meeting. So really, really great looking project, and I'm sure it's going to be a big hit once it opens up, hopefully soon. Quick question: what is the material on the adult slide?
It's a polished stone.
Heat-wise, does it hold the heat or reflect? You know, how hot can it get out there in the sun?
That's a good question. We've taken that into account. There's a decent amount of shade in that location. when we do material mock-ups, we're going to be doing a final test of the material. But our anticipation right now is that it doesn't get too hot as a stone surface, similar to other types of stone surfaces that are found around the city. This will have a very, very high polish to it, so it'll allow people to slide quite quickly down to the bottom.
It's a pretty good sized chunk of material too. It would take a lot of heat to heat that up.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you again. Marvelous job, really was. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. JD?
Yes, I echo Alan's comments. A very thoughtful, well thought out design. I have one or two questions and a comment or two, and please forgive me if I'm not happy with everything. It's probably just me. My first question, everything is open to view, it looks like, which is very important. So no activity can go on without being viewed, sort of a safety measure. It looks like you've taken that into consideration, Kevin.
Yes, we have. We've
That's great.
walked this through with PEP and our operations people to make sure it's all visible. And there will also be cameras.
That's wonderful. The other thing, the toddlers little area, sometimes the parents like to have that sort of enclosed so the kids can't run out. Is that to be considered or not?
I'll give you the general and maybe Ian can give you the specific. In particular, the spray shower area, we worked it so that the little kids are kind of in an enclosed area and the larger kids are more likely to play more in the periphery of it. And there's a cut through for the larger kids who like to run around more. But the spray shower does need to be in one spot for both age groups.
Okay.
Then on the children's play area, which is on the northwest end of the playground, it kind of is in a separate little area. It's zoned, but it's not walled off.
Okay. Thanks, Kevin. I guess my next question is for Noreen. That signage, how big is that sign that says Hudson River Park? Is it going to be flashing lights or what is that all about? It looks, I mean, is this, I don't see this in other piers.
Yes, it is.
So I think Madeline's on the phone or on here as well, but I can give you the starting point, which is that the park was designed with the concept of kind of beacons at major entrances, and Pier 97 being the northernmost kind of public pier in the park. One of the things that we are trying to do is let people know where they are. So the logo that is there went through the Public Design Commission, et cetera, along with the piers and the orange that you saw on the other side of the building. That is the official kind of look of the park. And the intent was to try, as we described it, to have it match the building instead of overwhelming the building by just sticking on the regular sign panel. Kevin or Madeline, do you want to say anything further about considerations?
Well, what size is it? How big is it?
I don't know the size.
I can speak to the dimensions just very quickly. So for the Pier 97 sign, the height is about 3'9". It's 13 feet wide. For the Hudson River Park sign, it's a little bit larger due to the logo. It's 4'9" tall and it's 26 feet wide.
Well, I don't like it. I don't want it in Central Park, big sign, Central Park. We know it's there, but anyway, I'll leave that. And no disrespect to the architect and the wonderful, thoughtful design of that building, but it just seems so corporate and so unpark-like. Convince me that it's not, that it's really not a corporate building that's just all linear. Is it going to be softened with some plantings or?
I can speak to that, which is.
And no disrespect, it's a beautiful design. I'm just asking.
It's actually a very tough building because footprint is there. It's very minimum. So in a way, your opinion is absolutely right. And I think that's our concern also. And I think what we did is not to make it a big box, corporate box. It has different heights so that they actually break down into smaller boxes. And then also it has a slight zip back in and out. So it will never be one straight thing. And also the material itself has a matte finish. So it's always reflecting activities on the side, and also it reflects back the trees in front of it.
Gotcha.
So because of materials, it has a really softening effect. If you think of other metal materials, which is just very static and cold, this particular material we chose has soft, diffusing, reflective thing. So you never see the material, but what you see is what's in front of it. So you see the people's figures, you can actually see the trees and even cars. It has this much more softer effect, although it's a very tough material. And
Thank you.
Could I add just one thing? Not in these renderings, but we are looking at a different material where the service yard is to make that more porous. So there'll be a change in texture. It won't be, it's basically the last, the northern 25 feet or so of the building will be porous instead of solid. And I think that change in texture will soften. I know what you're talking about. And I think that texture will help it a lot.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Okay.
Let's see, Sally.
Hi, thank you. That was a beautiful presentation. I just wanted to ask, I might have missed it in the presentation portion about the canopies. I remember that one of the questions was about the height. Were they too tall to protect us from the sun? You might have mentioned it, but I didn't catch it. And another question that had been raised was the density of the trees and the ability to see children from various parts of the park while they were playing. The parents had concerns about that. And the slide about that showed the raised elevated area, which looks beautiful. Is there any seating up there, even for a couple of people, or it's all standing room? That's it.
I think Ian,
Yeah.
you can answer those.
Sure, I can begin with the canopy. The canopy was designed, in fact, with a solar analysis, a shade study. That's something that was calibrated based on optimizing the prevalence of shade on sites throughout the year. Also height, the lowest it comes to any point, if you were to stand on top of the bleacher or stand on top of the upper level, the lowest it comes is 9 feet in any one point, but on average it's a bit higher than that. With regard to trees, yes, we kept in mind visibility. So we're avoiding dense conifers and plants that obscure your line of sight from around 3 feet to about 5 feet, which is where most people can perceive a person in the distance, so that you're able to survey your route as you travel across the pier. And for the area that you're referring to with regard to seating, the Belvedere, we do have integrated built-in benches of various configurations at various angles up in that location. At the far end, what we're calling the overlook, which was that area that gives the view over the far west side of the pier and onto the Hudson River in the distance, there currently are no seats there at the moment. Doesn't mean that we couldn't put a movable table and chair if HRPT decided, but at the moment it's intended to be an open area with free circulation, considering the fact that we have the slide also connecting to that location.
It's not a bad idea though.
Yeah, well, when I looked at it, I mean, it's very lovely, but it's also narrow. So having some chairs at that point might be difficult because it'll slow down traffic for people that want to come down to the end of it. But it's just such a lovely spot that people will also want to linger. So it is the good and the bad about having seating right over there. But
a place for the weary parent to sit while the kid goes up and down on the slide, perhaps.
Or as the parent wants to join them because adults can ride the slide.
But I think you're right that we do need to look at the narrowness. And also, I mean, it's such a prime spot. It's very easy for me to imagine someone taking that spot and wanting to stay all day long, which people do on the High Line.
Did think of that, right.
So I think we
Problem.
should look at both.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Sally. David, you're next, and Alan and Sally. And folks, don't forget to put your hand down, please, so it moves us up on the list. David.
Okay, could we go to the image right at the end of the pier next to the, I think it's an 11 or 12 foot rise?
David, this is an 80 slide presentation. Do we know how far back that was?
Probably in the 20s.
Okay. Thanks, Ian.
Yeah.
Okay.
Keep going, keep going.
Yeah, David, let me know if I'm
I'll
passing.
let you know the number when I see it.
Okay.
20s. Let's see. Yeah, it's probably slide 20 actually, or 19. Yep. Is this what you mean, 18, 19?
Yes. The part under the deck, can you tell us about the material there? It feels a little bit like a blank space that might be an opportunity. What can you say about it at this point?
Sure. It's a cantilever, of course. Beneath the deck, that volume, that's a black stucco in our design, a faceted black stucco, is a storage closet for HRPT. So what you can't see in this particular view is a door that allows O&M staff to access that for rakes and brooms and carts.
Also, our environmental programming staff would dearly love a spot where they don't have to carry their fishing rods and the pop-up tents and everything else that they use for education programs up and down the park.
Right. And this furniture is movable, so it's in some ways nice to have a kind of a wall behind you. So if we were to have a class event, we could rearrange the furniture and have that be the backdrop.
Okay. If we switch over to the building, I hear JD's comment that it feels corporate, but I think this is actually a very subtle design. And full disclosure, I'm a big Toshiko Mori fan ever since visiting her elegant, and elegant is the word for it, visitor center at Frank Lloyd Wright's Darwin Martin House in Buffalo. Toshiko's a very accomplished architect and educator at major design schools in this country, and the wife of Jamie Carpenter, who is another architect who's very well known for inventive use of materials that really exploit light in inventive ways. So I think we're getting a little bit of 2 for 1 in this design. And I think it's very hard to judge it without seeing maybe better samples or even like a night rendering, but it's very much about things that I think are hard to convey in a 2-dimensional rendering, qualities of light like that. I think the building will tend to dematerialize. It will look different in different lights, and could be quite fantastic. I would have one question for Noreen, which has to do with maintenance and things like cleaning. It almost looks like the dilemma of how are you going to clean those Venetian blinds? Do you feel that you're going to be able to maintain this on a regular basis next to the highway where there's a lot of soot without it starting to look grimy?
Yeah, well, that is the maintenance aspect of our team looks at any design before the community obviously sees anything or before we send anything out because of things like you're all asking. The surface, we have asked that question. That seems fine. I would say that we are still looking at the western side of the building and the louvers on that to make sure that our team can get access to the louvers from the water side. I think that thus far has been the area that we're still trying to figure out exactly how we would do that. Kevin, you may have a more detailed update from Deb as well.
Well, the one main thing helping us here is that the roof is accessible to staff. So the louvers are pretty reachable actually, from the staff. The only one area that we do have some concern is, like Noreen said, on the western side towards the bottom of the building. It'll be tricky to clean that unless we can reach it from the water. On the happy side of it, though, that's the area of the building least likely to get dirty. I'm really mostly concerned about the road grit, as you brought up. So working with operations, the plan is to basically wash it from the roof, and it's accessible from the roof.
I was also a little concerned about wear and tear. There's one view that showed the panels, the flush panels coming right down to the sidewalk level. And I'm kind of concerned about maintenance vehicles bumping into them. And, you know,
Can I answer that?
Sure.
Hi. So you're not seeing a final absolute design. We will protect those panels with rocks, plantings, and other types of landscape. We're very cognizant that we don't want the vehicles to bang into. So you're really not seeing a full picture of how it will be finished. But we are, it's a great concern to us, and we'll be watching that very carefully and making sure that we take care of that. I also just want to say, because I haven't had a chance to speak, but Toshiko has said what a complicated site this is. And in terms of the building, we wanted a building that would be elegant, but would not fight with the very strong architecture that was across in the VIA building, nor the strong landscape architecture on Pier 97. And I think that what she has achieved, she and her team, is just a really great balance, because it is a building, and I'm sorry we could not do this in person, but if you actually saw the materials, you would see this very intricate way that the light changes and the reflection changes on these materials. And the louvers, because they are slanted, that at any time of the day, and I know she said this, but I have to say it myself, because the subtlety of this elegance is going to create such different types of, it's going to look so different at every moment of the day and every type of weather, that it's going to give you a very subtle but beautiful experience, and you're going to think that you're looking at a different landscape all the time. So I think what this building has achieved for us is a beautiful, elegant look that will almost feel like it's part of the sky, and yet be able to have its own identity. And I think it's going to be just a great addition to our park.
Well, to finish, I'd just say I think it's a fantastic building, and as a cyclist, I really appreciate the bike maintenance station.
Thank you.
Thank you, David, and thank you, Madeline. Let's see, Leslie.
Hi, guys. I have to admit, whenever Milk is presenting, I know it's going to be awesome and aesthetically pleasing. So I was really looking forward to it. And you guys it's just wonderful. One little minor point before I get to my major point is just to echo JD that toddler space has to be lined off from the rest of the playground. And I know you guys said you were going to talk about that later. But my point was, David, thank you for your presentation too. It was wonderful. I missed the part, or the solar panel part, where obviously the environment committee as well. And I was wondering how much of this park is going to be energy self-sufficient, and how can we get to 100%, or if that's virtually impossible, how close can we get? And the solar panels you mentioned, what were they powering and what's the percentage?
Yeah, I can speak briefly to the solar panels on our building. So they're covering approximately 75% of our roof. We have to leave some space for FDNY access and things like that nature. For us, we're early in the design phase, but our studies show, like I mentioned, the power can accommodate lighting and receptacle loads for what would be equivalent of a 7,600 square foot office space. Our office space is much smaller than that. This obviously won't power the whole building, but it will provide a nice supplement to what's coming from the grid. And in the event where some of those loads are not being used and the PVs are generating more power than what's being used, like I mentioned, that supplemental power is then fed back to the grid, and it's actually deducted from HRPT's power bill if that's the case. So it only monitors, or basically only accounts for net metering. So they're basically only charged for what they're used minus what the PV panels produce. We'll be studying that in more detail in terms of the specific percentages and everything, but that's specifically for the comfort station.
This is the same system that I worked on in Washington Square Park has a net metering arrangement, and Bushwick Inlet Park in Brooklyn has the same thing, and it's really satisfying to go on a sunny day. You can watch the meter go the other way.
So Kevin, then what is, because I see there are lights that are going up and down the whole length of the pier. Those I'm guessing are not going to be energy self-sufficient. Since we do have, I mean, it's pretty much a blank slate here. I mean, we're you're building from nothing up. Mm-hmm. How can we get it that we do incorporate a totally 100% green space?
We'd have to do the math. Those lights are fed out of the building, and the building solar panels feed the building. So, the power on a sunny day would be enough to power those lights, except the lights by definition are on at night. So that's the beauty of the net metering, is that we put excess energy into the grid during the day and we draw from it at night. So I can't say that the light poles are powered directly by the solar panels because we have no energy storage in this building. But we'd have to do the math. In fact, we should do the math to see what the total energy load is with this project and see how much the solar panels put out. I actually haven't done that. That's a good thing to do. I will do that. All the lights are LED. They're fairly low draw. So I'll look into that.
All right, thank you. I would be interested. Thank you so much, guys. That was great.
Thank you, Leslie. Mr. Chair, Lowell.
Thanks, Jeffrey. I've got a bunch. Let's stay with the roof for a second since we're talking about that. I've now heard two things that the roof is going to be used for. There are going to be solar panels up there, but the maintenance staff needs access to clean the building. So, Kevin, I think you mentioned FDNY access to the roof, but has the maintenance needs been taken into account as well for the placement of the solar panel?
It's basically the same path, FDNY and the
All right, because that just occurred to me as you were answering Leslie's question. Let's go back to, I agree that the playground, at least for the toddler part, needs to be fenced in. Specifically talking about the kids' playground, how high is the slide? How quick is the slide? And where does the slide let off? How much space is there at the bottom of the slide? To Noreen and Madeline, that'll sound like another park to them, but that's where the question is
and
coming.
Kevin.
Yes.
He's lived those battles too.
Yeah.
For the record, I rode that slide today. I went to Chelsea Waterside to check on our maintenance work there, and I took that slide for a ride, and it was fine.
I know it's fine, but I'm worried about the complaints we're going to get if there's not enough room at the bottom of the slide. So how much room is there, and how high is it, and how fast is it?
Height and the zone at the bottom, Ian, I think you can answer that.
We're talking about the adult slide or the slide,
No, the kids slide.
Within the
The hell with the adults. If they break their neck, that's their.
Janine, could you go to the site plan? Maybe click back a few slides, please.
While they're pulling that up, Lowell, one thing I will tell you is that this slide only accommodates one person, be it a kid or an adult. So one of the issues that I have with Chelsea Waterside is it's really wide. So multiple kids were going down at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And that creates some tumbling and stuff. This is a one kid shoot. So
All right, because this one looks pretty high. Corey's going to love it.
It is pretty high.
Scott, what I'm really looking at is the complete flip of this, Ian, where the slide, not the back of the slide, but where you get off the slide.
Janine, could you go to slide 8?
Landing zone, yeah. Thank you, Noreen. That's the phrase I'm looking for.
And if a bunch of kids go on it quickly, Ian, how will they back up on each other?
Yeah, so we designed this with the fall zone criteria and also with the manufacturer's criteria. it's a little hard to see in the screen here, and I'm also unable to point to it, but we have the slide positioned to the path of least resistance right now. So it's aiming at the most open portion in the southern part of this playscape.
All right, I would just ask that you look into that and make sure, to the manufacturer's specs is great. It gives an answer when the parents start complaining, but if we can exceed the manufacturer's specs, so much the better.
Yeah.
On a related issue.
Yes, well, we exceed I agree with you. This is not another Chelsea Waterside Park where it seems like it's close to a wall. There's plenty of room at the bottom of this slide. It's positioned so that there's plenty of room. And Chelsea Waterside made us very conscious about this in planning this piece of equipment.
You know, Madeline, that's where my question came from as well.
Yes, yes.
Could I just, one other point, just, Lowell, so you
Go ahead, Kevin.
this is also an off-the-rack, it's an off-the-rack system. It's not a custom creation.
Okay.
Which is important. It meets all the manufacturer's standards.
Okay. Similarly, with the boulder design in the entry plaza, Ian, it looked like you added some of those boulders to the kids' play area. That was also a concern at Chelsea Waterside. In fact, it was the first thing I ever pointed out to Madeline was the stonework there is fabulous, but for kids running around, it also becomes a hazard. So you said, it looked to me when you were discussing the boulder in the entry that there were some in the playscape area as well.
Mm-hmm.
Are those, for the kids to play on, or are they a border of the play area?
They're more of a border of the play area. They've been in the design for quite a bit now, and we're again, if you look at the playscape here, you'll notice to the north we actually use them at the threshold for the toddler play area. So that could be an opportunity to create a fence anchor point if the intention is to now further close off the toddler area. We also use them as an anchor point at the main entrance to the playscape from the upland. And then also they're used as seating for adults in the southwest.
I get the anchoring argument, Ian. I'm just worried that you get kids, climbing on them and jumping off them and hitting their heads and whatever. I've become very sensitive to this, as Madeline, Noreen, and Kevin know. We went through this at another park, so I'm just sensitive to it now.
I think the specific boulders, right? I mean, like jumping off of the right boulder might be okay if there's the right landing zone again around it. If you can climb up too high and it's toddlers or whatever, then we have to look at that. So,
yep.
Understand.
Can you zoom into the playscape? That might help. Right. I also wanted to just address the toddler area is basically the top left piece of this playground. So it's in a cul-de-sac. That's where the sand is. And that situation has worked really well for us. I've done it in other parks, but also Pier 25 has kind of areas for different ages, and they're not fenced off from one another, but the kids fall into little compartments kind of by themselves. And that's what we were shooting for here. When we have fences between the age groups, it ends up cutting the park up into too many pieces. And I can tell you, my own daughter, the only injury she got in a playground so far is crashing into a fence gate. So I'm a little hesitant to.
All right, I understand, Kevin, and the fact that it's the furthest area from the road gives me some level of comfort. There's also that row of trees between the boardwalk and the bike path, right? So there's not an attractive nuisance of running out into the highway.
Right, and maybe I missed your point, but the playground itself is entirely fenced in. There are gates to get into the playground.
Okay, that probably solves my problem then.
Okay.
On the overlook, it looks like the overlook, there's just one way in or out. Are we worried about a bottleneck up there since it is such an attractive site?
Janine, could you go to the left?
Just scroll left, Janine, you should be able to see it.
Yeah.
So it looks to me like there's only one way in or out that's through the Belvedere. Is there another way out of the overlook that's going to help alleviate traffic?
There's the stair and the slide.
Well, the slide, yeah, but I'm worried about people who get up there and you're gonna realize the slide's the only way out.
There's a stair also next to the slide. Yeah.
Okay. Let's go back to the building. The concept is great. I love it. I'm concerned about the louvers either being an attractive nuisance to birds if they can't tell that it's a building, if because of the iridescence. I'm worried about it retaining heat and creating, you know, an uncomfortable feeling in the restrooms and in the cafe. And the louvers themselves, who's controlling them and where is that controlled from?
Louvers are fixed in the position.
So they don't move up and down?
No, it's fixed in the position. So louvers themselves has this kind of airfoil shape, and it will have insulation in it. So it's actually not going to produce heat. We also dealt with a project in Cambridge with the louvers and the birds. And what we discovered is that birds hate angled louvers.
Okay.
And slight angle because they have little feet. So if they don't like to perch in an angle. This was with a pharmaceutical company. We did a lot of studies. And so I think it's even a 1/4 inch they hate it. So that's actually something we have worked with. Yes, and also at the same time, birds are attracted to something which emits lights or transparent, but this is still has a slight iridescent, but it's not reflective.
Okay.
So they would know not to go in there. So
All right. I was worried so much about them perching Toshiko, but on the western side on the water, I was worrying them flying into the back of the building.
Yeah.
But if the iridescence isn't going to take that in. While we're on the building, the cafe signage, I was trying to see it, but you ran through the slides too quickly. There's a limit on the size of the cafe signage.
Right.
Is that correct?
That's what we're showing you is the limit.
Okay. I didn't get a chance to read it because we ran through the slides too quickly. I'm fine with the Hudson River Park and the Pier 97 signs. I disagree with JD on that. I'm worried about the, commercial signage, not so much the park signage.
So what we're trying to do by showing the words cafe signage exactly where is kind of at Public Design Commission approval up front for the exact place,
Okay.
location, and scale. So what you saw is kind of true to the sizing standard that we would have.
Okay. Now I'm heading out of the park on the bike path itself. It looks like there's a nice separation between the boardwalk area and the bike path, but how narrow is the bike path? Because you're going to have the jogger versus bike conflict that we have in the rest of the park if it's very narrow.
Ian, I think I need you for the dimensions there. The width of the bike path.
Is it as wide as we can possibly make
Yeah.
it?
Sorry, I was muted. It's about 16 feet with 2 feet of gutters on either side.
Okay, so there's at least some room for someone to jump out of the way of the illegal e-bike on the bike path.
Yes.
Yes.
Not the narrowest part of our bike path.
Yeah. All right. And my last question, I'm going to steal one from the committee chair. Is there a spot at the west end for a landing for a water taxi?
Yes, so we are not building it, but one of the things that by shifting the historic vessel location further east, if there were a future waterborne transportation component that could work at the site, we've talked about that. You can't see it here, but as you can see, there's no trees, there's no anything that kind of goes right to the edge at the
Southwest corner.
Southwest corner. So, if you wanted to have something at some future point, I think that there is room for that there.
Right. And the location of the historic ship won't prohibit that?
The location of the historic ship further east should not prohibit it. It actually, we think that we looked at the whole south side for the historic ship, and we're sensitive to not wanting to block views from the lawn, among other things. It's also, if it's, you know, a more active zone, that the overall pier is designed with more activity towards the east and more relaxing towards the west. So yeah, I think there are things to think about if there is a water taxi or a ferry or whatever, but we're not there yet. And for the moment, there seems to be space for something in the future.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that I mean, I understand putting the historic vessel further east to not block views. The only thing that'll block is the boathouse. It's at 96. But if you have a water taxi or a ferry stop at the far end, I want to make sure that those ships coming in are not going to, you know, generate a wake or anything that's going to affect the historic vessel.
Right. Well, I think that bringing the water taxi further east would actually affect the non-motorized boaters, the kayakers, and everything else like that more. So that's another reason to think about keeping them further west if that ever happens.
All right, I'll leave that. I know there's some people from the community boathouse on if they have that question when Jeffrey gets to the public. Thank you all very much. This is a great design. It keeps getting better every time we see it.
Yes, thank you, Lowell. Blake?
Yes, thank you for the presentation. I'm really excited about this. Two quick questions. One, and I might have missed this at the last meeting, but it looks like there's a different fencing on the north and south side of the pier. And, you know, I understand the need for a more chain link kind of fence in the activity area where balls might get thrown into the water. But I'm wondering, you know, about the rationale of continuing with that more chain link look all the way to the west side of the pier. And my second question is about the building, and it looked in one of the pictures like there was a vehicle in there. So I just want to learn a little more about the interaction between the vehicle entrance and the bike path, you know, in that area.
Mm-hmm. Sure, I could speak to the fence. It's good that you pointed out, or rather identified, that we do have, you know, quite a significant fence along the north side that's done primarily to keep, you know, errant balls or frisbees or whatever may happen in the activity field from going in the water. Same for the children's playscape. The reason why we've extended that fence typology farther to the west was for the efficiency of the detailing. Because we have a grade change along the north side, along the Belvedere and the Overlook, we actually have a disconnection from what's currently installed along Pier 97. Which is the HRPT standard guardrail. That guardrail is being maintained everywhere except for the northern portion between the tip of the overlook all the way to the entrance of the activity field. And we did that approach not only for the efficiency of the detail, but also for its size. The HRPT standard guardrail is quite heavy and takes up a lot of width dimensionally, right? So by using a thinner detail, we're able to actually make a more efficient use of the space as well. And we're able to join specific elements together without taking up too much room.
Okay. And the building vehicle, that's what you're talking about, is that's the yard for maintenance forces. So I know it looks like a pickup truck is in that rendering, but that's actually unlikely to happen. It's really electric golf carts, Motrex. It's the stuff you see in the park generally. So we'll have a few of those in there charging up, and that's where they transfer materials.
It is sized so that if we needed to bring a pickup truck with a bunch of plants or whatever it is, that would work and not be blocking the esplanade or everything else like that. But as Kevin said, the normal park vehicle is a lot smaller.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you, Blake. Marty?
Thank you. Thank you for this presentation. It's been a pleasure to watch this develop into a really, really lovely project. And other people have said that, but I felt I needed to echo it. Thank you so much. It'll be an asset for the community. I believe I am correct that this is one of the first projects our committee has examined that actually is incorporating solar panels on the roof. Several of us on the committee have often requested it, and I can't help but say, hooray, thank you. This is a wonderful moment for us to see it actually included in the design. So I have two questions. One is, why aren't there more solar panels on the canopy structure? Another logical place for solar panels. And the second question I have is, you haven't talked much about the overall energy efficiency of the building itself. The Bronx River Alliance has just opened a river house up in Starlight Park. It is a 100% off. It's connected to the grid, but it's 100% offline. It uses batteries. I understand your strategy of not using batteries because that adds a lot of expense to the building, and you've got Con Ed to be the buffer, and that actually makes a lot of sense to me. But you haven't talked about the overall energy efficiency of the building. The boathouse uses vines and other accessories on the outside of the building to prevent the heat gain that the sun would bring. I have the feeling that I heard the louvers would accomplish some of that. So the question really is, in a few words, what's the overall energy efficiency of the building itself? Solar panels on the canopy, energy efficiency of the building. Thank you.
First of all, just to let you know, I worked on the Starlight River House also. Before this job, I was the chief architect for New York City Parks. So I know that building inside and out.
It's a great building.
Yeah. And it
So
uses
you're
geothermal wells, which we can't do here, actually, for a lot of their energy savings.
That's right.
But with that said, we're not really far enough along with this building to ascertain what its energy use is going to be. We're really at this late schematic stage. So we need to really get into sizing the equipment and the pumps and all of that to really tell you specifically what it is. But as I was talking, I remembered we are actually changing the lights on the promenade on the pier to be solar powered lights. So I don't know why I should have mentioned that before, but these, the lights on that south promenade, those will also be solar powered lights. And aside from the lights, there isn't a whole lot of energy draw on this project. So I think we're doing pretty good, but we still need to do the math.
And also the building has very little windows and except on cafe, and it has actually shaded by the canopy above. So in a way, it's incredibly well insulated building. So there's very little heat loss or heat gain because of it. And I think we try to compensate the lack of windows by appearance of louvers, but I think our intuition is that it's going to be incredibly energy efficient building.
It will, at a minimum, be LEED silver, by the way. We're not going to certify it necessarily, but it will be designed to LEED silver.
Marty, we are very cognizant about making our park, when we can, energy efficient. So it really is a top priority. So we're going to model it, and but the design of the building and of all the mechanicals, we always are looking at that, and we'll get back to all of you about when we do model it and how we're doing, but it's a very key component for us. We are looking at this everywhere in the park now, and everything we do right now is about energy efficiency. So we appreciate that, and we'll get back to you on this.
Thank you. Gwen, on the phone.
I thank you for that.
Oh, sorry, Marty. I didn't realize you had another follow-up.
Just a comment and then I'll stop. The fact that you're doing energy efficiency on that building and modeling it and are going to come back to us about it is a really wonderful thing, and you should be proud of yourselves for it. Thank you so much.
Marty, we were channeling you. when we figured out that solar would work here, we were channeling you.
Well, thank you very much for that. And I'm looking forward to hearing about the energy efficiency of the building when you come up with it.
Marty, you say solar panels enough, eventually they're going to listen.
Thank you, everybody. Gwen on the phone.
There are more.
Gwen, we just lost.
Hi, I was just wanted to stand up for windmills there. Small windmills would get you more.
That's the comment? Thank you.
No,
Oh.
the comment was actually, I agree with JD about the building. And I just don't think it fits there. It just doesn't look right. Especially the signs, but the rest of it too. It looks like a commercial building, an office building. It doesn't. It's jarring with the park to me.
Okay.
And that's it.
Thank you for that.
Jeffrey, can I respond to Gwen?
Sure, I was going to, but go ahead.
Gwen, if you go north of this park, you've got the Con Ed Pier and the Sanitation Pier. So there's absolutely nothing there that feels like a park at all. I know the trust
This is
needs.
not a debate, Lowell.
Yeah.
This is not a debate.
I'm not debating. I was just trying to respond. And you know, the other thing I was going to say is that I know the park we asked for a restroom there, and I know the park needs a maintenance facility there, so it may not work really well, but it's something we asked for previously.
Well, I don't say that it doesn't need the functions it has. I'm just saying that to me it looks very commercial in the middle of a park.
Thank you, Gwen. I'm going to make a couple comments, and then we're going to go to Katie in the public for this. So, Jeannie, if we want to tee up Katie and move her into the panelist so she can ask her question. Starting on the building, I liked the contrast, the particular elegance, especially when you saw the view from the highway of the Con Ed piping, and then the sort of very linear element of the building up against what seems to be a marrying of circular and geometric design throughout the park. I rather liked, even though at first it felt a little cold to me, but it grew on me. I want to applaud the perforated canopy. I think letting a little bit of sunlight through is really important in places like this and not full shade. My two questions are around, have we chosen a wood material? I noticed quite a bit of wood in the benching, and in particular in the northern sections of the pier. And is that a standard park wood, or are there specific ones being considered for this pier?
We have chosen a wood material. It's called Kebony. It's an engineered wood fabricated from pine, and it has the same performance almost as an Ipe. HRPT, their mandate is to not use any tropical hardwoods, and Melk also agrees with that by practice. Ipe is also utilized elsewhere in the city of New York. So we've seen its durability. And if you're curious about it.
Jeffrey, we've done an enormous amount of research on this. We're using it on Pier 26, okay. And we like the way it looks. You'll like the way it looks when it opens. And we think that this is the best wood that's available that can substitute for hardwood like Ipe, and one that actually will look good as it ages. So I think you're going to like it when you see it.
Thank you. That's the kind of answer I wanted. And then Ian, your planting scheme is gorgeous, but it looks like you were showing all 3 seasons of bloom of various things at one time throughout there. And I just want to make sure.
That's about climate change, Jeffrey.
Well, I know that, Madeline, but I rarely do see a still bee and liatris and cherry trees all at the same time. That's a little bit specific, but I couldn't resist the comment because it looks gorgeous. But I hope we're planning, as the park does, for 3 seasons of color and then winter structure, of course, as well.
We have, and rendering programs, of course, have limitations.
Gotcha.
In general, we tried to communicate the prevalence of where bloom density would be, but there will be definitely seasonal interest and change over time.
Great, thank you. So Brad and Chris, I see your hands just went up, and I had your last two members of the committee, I guess, implore you to be brief. It's 8:09 and we have 5 more items on the agenda. So Brad, please.
Yes. 2 questions real quick, Mr. Chair. I will be brief. Do we have the money to build this, and when will it start? And my third point is, can we get the Con Ed transfer station to take down their neon colors so the sign will look better?
Okay. Well, as you know, we have the money in the state budget to build the park. It is, and as you also know, there's a huge amount of pain that is being suffered by government right now, and we're part of government, and we're suffering it too. So we hope that, so we are completing the design, and we are working with the state to figure out how we can move forward on this project. Our intention is to move forward on the project. No money was cut from this project, so that's a good thing. We know that the governor wants to get it done, but there's a lot of noise, as you can imagine, right now on COVID. And we need to get through that a little bit before we can figure out what exactly our schedule of construction will be.
Thank you. Is that it, Brad?
Yeah, and I wasn't joking about taking that color down on the Con Ed sign. I'm
Oh,
serious.
yeah. That's interesting. Let's take a look at that.
And Mr. Chair,
yes,
I know we always talk about water taxis, but would it be possible to actually put it on the drawing and say water taxi landing site? Why does it always have to be vague, Mr. Chair?
That is an appropriate thing. I don't consider the trust to be the appropriate mechanism to be doing the development and planning for it. So yeah, in an ideal world, they're showing it, and you're right. I guess we could have it considered. I was heartened by this plan that it actually gives what I see as a little bit more flexibility to a potential landing long-term if we can convince the city to bring service here.
And Madeline, thank you so much. We've been waiting for solar and green for years, and we really appreciate it. Thank you.
Oh, it's our pleasure because it's really important.
Thank you. Christopher.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Thank you, everybody. I just wanted to say to HRPT, Toshiko, and Milk, you're really making green space out of nothing. And it's heartening to see the hard work going in during this time that we're all facing right now. And secondly, 2 comments made about water taxis. I'm aware that Pier 90 was dredged to host the U.S. Naval ship Comfort. It was done in record timing. I don't know how deep they went, but that is another option for water taxis on the Hudson River Park. So that may be something that we want to look into in a future meeting with EDC. I believe they're the ones that manage that pier. That's all. But thank you, everybody.
I think that the Manhattan Cruise Terminal is different than the piers that are in the rest of the park. There are DEC and environmental regulations around dredging in these areas, if I'm not mistaken, Madeline, that we'd obviously have to have much deeper conversations around an EIS and that type of thing.
Well, I mean, I'm sure Noreen would like to chime in, but I'll just say, so the Comfort got an emergency permit to dredge because it was truly an emergency. Dredging is really complicated and difficult under the best circumstances, meaning the passenger ship terminal, which is not in the park. But in the Hudson River Park Act, it actually says that no dredging is allowed. So that is a big issue. I will say that as time goes on, much of the park is being silted in. When I say much of the park, I mean in Water Park. It's just the cycle and the way that that's happening, and if that's not an area that I think is going to be very well received if we start opening that up. But you know, it's just the way it is, that the depths of the water around the park are just very shallow, and I think just as time goes on, we have to accommodate to that.
Thank you, Noreen. Thank you for raising Chris. Katie, thank you for your patience from the men from the boathouse.
Yeah.
Are you there?
Yes.
Oh,
Hi.
great. Hi.
I'm Katie Savage. I'm on the board of directors for Manhattan Community Boathouse, which operates out of Pier 96, which is directly south of Pier 97. Pier 97 is actually our northern border for our embayment. So anything that happens on the south side in the water is effectively in our embayment and puts our kayakers at risk. So the historic vessel will then, if that were to leave for excursions, that interferes with our free public program. Water taxis would effectively kill our public program, which serves 17,000 people on average per season. It's currently the main draw to the north side of the park. So that's a huge issue for us. So how can we address keeping our programming and, you know, finding a way to maybe use the north side of the pier so it doesn't interfere with our embayment?
Thank you for that, Katie. Rashi or Madeline, can you speak to whether or not this historic ship is planned to do excursions, or she'll stay put at the pier?
So, I mean, I'll just start with the point that the park overall was designed for boathouses and historic ships. And it was designed for a historic ship location at Pier 97 specifically, and for the boathouse that we built, obviously, at Pier 96. And throughout the park and throughout the harbor, kayaking and vessels work together. It's not always ideal, but with operational planning, you can think about it. You're not open every day a week at every hour. The historic vessel might not be either, depending on what it is. And whether it has to move or not is one of the things that can be considered as that the planning continues with whether we can even bring it to the pier. But, you know, programmatically, the community board has been on record as wanting a historic vessel. The north side does not work. It's very narrow. The fenders that you can kind of see sticking out of the pier on the far left at the top of the page there are there because vessels coming, I mean, it's Con Ed, it's a fuel transfer facility. So working vessels come in and out of that location, and in the past have basically bumped those fenders that you see sticking out there. So putting any kind of vessel on the north side there really doesn't work. And it really also doesn't work with the design of the Belvedere and the Overlook for other reasons. So the south side is the spot that would work for a historic vessel. And I think you're raising operational questions that are important questions, but I don't think it's either or.
If you notice, I just want to point out, if you notice the design of the pier on the north side, how the corner is rounded off. And it was done that specifically because of the Con Ed barges having a difficult time maneuvering around that. And that just made, I mean, we really studied putting a boat on the north side, and that's really where we wanted it, but it just wasn't going to work with the Con Ed operation. But we are a park of many colors, and we work with the boathouses and the historic ships, and we somehow managed to incorporate boating and historic ships. And I think we would do the same here. We would not put a ship there without considering the needs of the boathouse. So this is going to be an ongoing conversation. This is not where it ends. It's just where it starts. And, you know, the historic boat is not a done deal either. So it's a process, and you'll be part of the process.
Thank you. Beyond the historic boat, there's also the water taxi that would be moving frequently and causing wake, which would also pose a big issue for our kayakers.
Definitely have a big effect. It's true.
That is not our current proposal, as you
Right, but just to be clear, that is, the trust has never put forward that. The board has long been advocating for lateral west side ferry service and had identified Pier 97 as a sort of key element of that plan, recognizing there may be conflicts with that along the way. I did just want to ask about the south side of Pier 96 with regards to your use and access. And there is additional abilities for you on the south side of 96, right, Katie?
So the way 96, I mean, it's not on your map. 96 does not stick out very far. It's very short. So 94 is our southern boundary and 97 is our northern boundary. That space and the imaginary line that connects the end of those piers is our space for kayaking. So it would be very difficult to keep, it's already difficult to keep people away from those piers. Everybody wants to investigate, especially when the concerts were happening on 97. So having other attractions there will be difficult. The other major thing beyond the boats is fishing. Fishing is a big issue when we're kayaking up by Pier I and looking out for fishing lines. Will people be fishing off of the south side of 97, potentially interfering with our kayakers? You can't see the fishing line. You throw your pole out and you hook somebody. That's a big safety issue as well, especially on the weekends. We are very, very busy on the weekends. So anything that I understand during the week, you know, things can happen when we're closed, but Saturdays and Sundays from May through October, always busy. So anything that's moving around within our embayment poses a huge issue.
So Katie, we do environmental education that involves fishing and other activities in the water. And again, the issues that you're addressing here, we have at 3 other boathouses in the park as well. We do environmental programming, we do other things in other places. And we basically work with people to try to figure it out. So that is the best answer that we can give you at this point. You know, we want to bring local school kids near Pier 97 out to the pier to discover what lives in the river. So whether that is through fishing or through other things, we don't exactly know yet. But I mean, your concerns are not unique to this spot. And we've basically managed well with all of the other boathouses that we have. So, you know, that's the best thing that I can say right now.
Okay.
Thank you, Noreen, and thank you, Katie. Appreciate you raising those issues. I don't know if we need a letter here. My inclination is that we are continuing to applaud the design. All of the concerns that were raised regarding the playground, the louvers on the building, FDNY and maintenance access to the building, access to the Belvedere up and down, seem to have all been addressed. If somebody on the committee feels otherwise, please let me know. Because if not, I don't know that there's a need for a letter here.
I agree that there shouldn't be a letter, or we don't need a letter, and I look forward to the next presentation.
Could I just ask, Kevin, do we need one for PDC?
That's true. PDC you may require one.
They haven't asked, you were nice enough to give us one to begin with for the overall schematic plan. So I think we're good as far as PDC is concerned.
Okay. Well, thank you all for that very much. This is big. And, you know, Madeline, hold on to that money from the governor, please, and get this built.
Believe me, I'm working on it.
Okay, good. Our next item, scope of work for the planned restoration of Private Passage, the sculpture in Clinton Cove, which is actually just south of where we were viewing this evening.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, Madeline. Thank you.
Ian, thank you, Toshiko. Thank you. Thank you, Jeffrey and Lola.
Yes. Thank you all, Toshiko, Ian, everybody's teams. Thank you for that on 97. We're very excited.
This is Jerry. Bye. Glad to hear. Glad to hear. Thank you. Have a good evening.
You too. So, who's doing private passage update?
I am. Hi, I'm Kate from the Trust.
Hi, Kate.
Hi.
Janine, do we have a screen share here?
Yes, I'm pulling it up, sorry.
Okay.
Okay, great. So I'm going to do a brief overview of the scope of work for the conservation of private passage by Malcolm Cochrane. Next slide, please. Thanks. So private passage is the formal name of the large sculpture that we more commonly refer to as the bottle. It's a piece by Malcolm Cochrane that's located, as Jeffrey mentioned, in Clinton Cove, adjacent to the Pier 96 boathouse. It was installed in April of 2005, so it's been in the park for about 15 years now. And as you can see from the image on the right, it's starting to show its age a bit. And so thanks to grants from council members Corey Johnson and Helen Rosenthal, we've been able to start this project to conserve this sculpture. Next page, please. So we started this project by hiring Wilson Conservation. They're a well-known art conservator based in Brooklyn. And so we've been collaborating with them and with Malcolm Cochrane, the artist, to develop a set of specific recommendations for how to restore the sculpture. So the primary scopes of work are the application of a new exterior finish. You can see in the image on the bottom right that the piece is starting to rust. It's been exposed to weather. Members of the public interact with the piece. It also went through Hurricane Sandy, and so it's starting to need some work. The sculpture itself is made out of steel, and there was an applied coating that made it resemble aged bronze. And so for this project, we're going to remove that applied coating, make any repairs necessary to the steel, and then apply a new system that's going to be more resilient and something that we're going to be able to maintain on our own moving forward. So we think that will really be an improvement that will allow this to sort of to stand up to time. While we're at it, we're also going to replace the glazing and all the portholes. You know, some of them have become scratched, a few of them have broken over the years. We've replaced them, but we're looking to use more resilient materials. And then also on the interior, you know, the piece was flooded during Hurricane Sandy, and while we did the best that we could, and we tried on multiple occasions, you can see on the interior in the image on the upper right, you know, there's some rusting, there's some dirt that need, you know, so there's going to be a thorough cleaning. They're going to take care of the rust, and it's going to be returned to us looking brand new. So next slide, please. In terms of schedule and logistics, the piece is going to need to be removed from the site so that this specialized work can be done in a metalworking facility. So the piece is going to be off-site for about 3 months. The disruption to the park should be minimal. There will be perhaps a day or two of partial closures in this immediate area just to get the piece in and out. That will be coordinated as necessary. And our overall time frame is a little bit TBD. We need to get final approvals from the Public Design Commission. We'd have some contracting to work out, and we just need to make sure everything is in place with our funding given the current state of the city's budget. But something that we're going to work out, and we're really excited to be able to do this. And that's basically it. So take any questions?
That's great, Kate. Thank you. Any questions from the committee? JD?
Yes, I think this is just terrific. This is a wonderful piece of public art. Children love it, and I love it too. Thank you for doing this. I hope we can write a letter thanking Corey and Helen for the funds for this, because this is a wonderful piece of public art. Why does it take 3 months?
They're going to have to sort of blast the exterior surface off. It's going to be done basically in a foundry, and then it's going to go to a specialized coating space. And so there's just a bit of, you know, it's careful work and it's specialized, so it's being taken off site.
And the interior, the furniture inside, is that going to be polished up?
Yes, they're going to clean everything. They're going to do an assessment once they have it open and they can get in it. And they'll do whatever needs to happen to make it look as it did when it arrived.
That's great. Thank you.
Does that mean we'll lose that patina finish as well as the rust?
No, it's going to be replicated. The rust
Okay,
will
good.
remain, but the effect that of an aged bronze is what's going to happen.
Great, thank you. Anybody else on the committee? Any members of the public? JD, are you formalizing the idea of a letter to Corey and Helen on this?
Yes, I am. I move that we write a letter thanking Corey and Helen for the funds to restore.
Thank you. Is there a second on the motion? Thank you, Sally. Seems like a pretty straightforward letter. Kate, did you receive, was it a recent, was this fiscal year? Is this years in the making? Just so I can note.
I think that the funding from Corey may have been last year. We can get you that actually.
So recent, okay, that'd be great if, just so I can include a specific
Okay.
line.
Yeah, we can get you that.
Thank you. Okay, great to hear that. We love in new public art, improvements to our existing public art, so thank you for that. Next item on our agenda, moving to City Parks to present on the temporary public art exhibition coming to Bella Abzug Park in the summer of 2020, also referred to as Hudson Boulevard, area around Hudson Yards. And we have a brief presentation on that. And have we moved over that person presenting?
I believe it's Nicole's presenting, but she can't be promoted. Let me see.
Let's see. Nicole, were you planning? I didn't know that she was planning to present on it.
It'll actually be Elizabeth Masella from Parks who will be leading the presentation.
Thank you.
Sure thing.
Is Elizabeth on? Yep, there she is. She raised her hand and everything.
Oh, great.
Can you see and hear me?
Yes, thank
Okay.
you.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Masella. I'm the Senior Public Art Coordinator at NYC Parks. I'm here also with Nicole from the Hudson Yards House Kitchen Alliance to share just a brief informational presentation with you about a temporary public art project that will be coming to Bella Abzug Park hopefully later this summer. I think it's been a while since we've been to District 4 with public art. Just to give you a brief overview, our Art in the Parks program permits temporary public artwork in parks in all 5 boroughs. We're a small team of 2. Temporary art is considered anything on view for up to 1 year. All projects are funded by the artist or the exhibitor. They're required to maintain and cover all costs of installation for the artwork. Right now our entire program is kind of on hold for the time being. We're aiming for August for this project. Ultimately, if there's still a lot of restrictions in place at that time, we can postpone it. Nicole's been in touch with the artists. They're aware kind of the situation. We're going to continue to monitor that. Safety is of utmost importance. So the artwork is going to be a bronze sculpture. I'll show you some slides in a moment. It's quite large. It's going to be the world's biggest bronze gorilla sculpture by the Australian artist duo Gillian Mark. It's called King Makara, and Makara is a real gorilla who lives in Uganda. The artists are proponents of wildlife conservation. They met the gorilla on a travel to Uganda and are creating the sculpture to honor him and gorilla populations around the world. You'll see on the first slide an area marked out where the sculpture will go. The Alliance has gone out and measured to make sure it will fit. There will be plenty of space in keeping with ADA accessibility. It'll be 4,000 pounds, so it'll be quite heavy and be held in place by its weight and won't require any anchoring. It'll be moved into place by a crane, which can be done in a few hours from the roadway that you see there. And it should take a few hours, and we'll find a time to do that when there's not so many pedestrians. Next slide. And that shows you in the larger scheme of the park where it will be. Next slide. This is an earlier rendering. It's not going to be quite that large. I think there it looks like it's about 20 feet tall. Next slide. This is an earlier model of the gorilla that will be in the park. So that's essentially it. So August tentatively 2020 to July 2021. And I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Any questions from members of the committee? Great. Nicole or Bob, did you want to add anything?
No, I'm good. I have
Thank you,
nothing
Bob.
to add.
Thank you. Blake, I saw your hand go up. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I was just wondering if we could get a little more context on how this particular sculpture was chosen. You know, I just am curious about how it fits in, you know, either with the time period or with the setting. You know, to me, to be honest, it feels a little out of place, and particularly in the current environment, it might feel a little more out of place. You know, given that we would be coming out of this pandemic, hopefully, at the time that this would be shown.
So the artist approached the Alliance. I don't know, if, Nicole, if you wanted to say anything about kind of the why of this sculpture in your park. I mean, generally our program, we look at site suitability in terms of how an artwork might impact the use of this regular use of the space. You know, art is kind of in the eye of the beholder. You know, our partners, you know, may feel a certain connection between this and the site. You know, we do try to be thoughtful about why a piece and where and things like that. So Nicole, I don't know if you have anything you wanted to add on that note.
Sure. In some of our early conversations about the piece, the artist expressed some interest in sort of raising awareness about the gorilla and using sort of the status of the park's location as a way to do so and then encourage rather conversation about the species and the animal, and then basically trying to tie it into by way of how it looks and encouraging people to sit on it and engage with it, tying in this sort of sense of community and unity.
And ultimately, you know, it is temporary, so will go away after some time.
Got it. Thank you.
Thanks, Blake.
Well, can I at least say it? The gorilla in the room? I mean, let me say it.
Love the eyes.
Jeffrey, you're muted. We can't hear you.
Somebody had a
Talking to myself all day long again. Does the Parks Department or the Alliance require any correspondence on this?
No, since it's temporary, we don't require any a resolution or anything. If you feel that, like, some community boards do like to issue a letter of support if you so need, but we don't require it.
Does the committee feel strongly about issuing a letter of support? I'm indifferent. I think that it's allowed to happen. I think it's okay. And given that Marty and I are the letter writers, if the committee doesn't want to write a letter, I'm okay with that.
The Alliance isn't asking for a letter either, so.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Okay, great. Elizabeth, Nicole, Bob, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, everyone.
Sure.
Be well.
On to the next item on our agenda from the Department of Sanitation regarding the compost collection program suspension. I'm sure they're going to get into this, but the city stopped not just curbside composting in light of the COVID outbreak, but it's also been put on halt at green markets and Hudson River Park has also suspended their compost collection. So other than local community gardens, or if you have access to the Lower East Side Ecology Center in Manhattan, there's really nowhere to compost. So we asked for a brief update on the why and with what we might be able to do to request getting some of it back online, not curbside pickup, but what locations around the city and in our neighborhood in particular we can request. So Department of Sanitation, who do we have this evening? Oh, Marisa?
Marissa, yeah.
Marissa, sorry about that.
That's okay. Hi, I'm Marissa Yanni. I'm the Manhattan Liaison for Community Outreach. I also have on here with me Andrew and Marguerite from our Bureau of Recycling and Sustainability. So they're going to be getting into the composting suspension as well as answering all of your questions. I'm just here to say hi and make sure everyone, make sure you see who I am as your Manhattan Liaison, and just give a quick update just from Department of Sanitation. So I think everyone knows about our street sweeping rules that are in effect, and do know that they will be in effect, rules will be in effect again from May 18th to the 24th. And then alternate side parking is suspended again for another 2 weeks from May 25th to June 7th. Just want to flag that on May 21st and May 24th are already scheduled alternate side parking suspension days for 2 holidays. So just want to keep that in mind for folks, just in case you didn't see that. But I'm going to turn it over to Andrew and Marguerite.
Thank you. Andrew and Marguerite.
Well, hello, everyone. It's me, Andrew Hoyles. I'm the Senior Manager of Organics Outreach with the Department of Sanitation. And, I really want to start I believe we were invited earlier by Manhattan CB4's committee and for March 12th. And we were going to present at that meeting to talk about all of the various options, both the curbside composting program and the drop-off programs that were available to all residents in CB4. And, 2 months later, we are in quite a different location, quite a different reality, given the global pandemic, given the, loss of life and the loss of revenue to the city and the emergency status that the city's in, which was actually declared on the 12th of March. So, I work specifically on the curbside program, the brown bin program, but not great news. We suspended the program as of March 4th, or May 4th, excuse me, as of May 4th. Essentially, the city needed to free up funds for COVID response. And in doing so, that was one of the hard choices that the commissioner had to do when the mayor asked for program cuts with service. So residents in Manhattan 4, you had to actually opt into the program. We had an opt-in program where you signed up online and you received a site visit from staff, and then they would talk to your building super or your building maintenance, and then provide bins and service. The alternative were the drop-offs, which there were a handful of drop-offs around the city, particularly in CB4. And we actually suspended those drop-offs to stay in the recommendations and requirements, really, of social distancing that were put out by the governor, by the mayor, by the various health departments, New York City Health, CDC, so on and so forth. So at this stage, there are supports for composting, are actually composting in your home if you have access to a worm bin, or if there's any backyard space. Jeff, even I did hear, with gardens, but even the gardens, the Green Thumb Gardens are closed to non-garden members right now. So even that is not an option at this immediate moment. And I know that as a response, the city wants to reevaluate once social distancing measures are take a step back. Then we'll be able to reevaluate some of the options for drop-offs. However, part of the cuts that were part of the scaling back of these programs, our program partners, the New York City Compost Project, actually lost its funding in this, and also our education with Grow NYC, which the department also funds. They were also unfortunately defunded for emergency COVID response. And so even with the fact of some of the people who are staffing these drop-offs, some of the people who were processing the material that was collected at the drop-offs, those were the sites that were also lost as well. Marguerite, I'm going to ask if you have elements you want to add to this. I think I covered all the aspects of the drastic, shift. We had the largest program for composting in the world in March, in the beginning of March, and now we actually have quite a small program given the reality of COVID and the response. But I want to see if Marguerite has anything she wants to add as far as that.
Yeah, sure. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Great. Hi, everyone. My name is Marguerite Manella, and I'm the Senior Manager of Community Composting and Compost Distribution at the Department of Sanitation. So in my role as Manager of Community Composting, my main role there was to oversee the NYC Compost Project, which Andrew just mentioned. That we will, so we are going to, I'll just be a little more specific about what that program is. There's a skeleton crew still employed and funded by us through the end of this fiscal year, but starting on July 1st, we will be suspending the program for FY21. The suspension is intended to be temporary, with funding returned to the partners, but the program was made up of 7 teams based at 7 different partner organizations: Big Reuse, Brooklyn Botanic Garden, Earth Matter, Lower East Side Ecology Center, the New York Botanical Garden, Queens Botanical Garden, and Snug Harbor Cultural Center and Botanical Garden. So I just wanted to be clear about what that means. And as Andrew said, while the compost project was no longer operating many food scrap drop-off sites, they were processing, composting a large quantity of the food scraps that are collected at many different drop-off sites throughout the city. And they were also in a technical assistance role supporting a lot of what we call community-hosted food scrap drop-off sites. There are a handful in Manhattan 4, and so we still have a small team at sanitation that will hopefully be able to continue focusing on composting in the coming year. But the reality is that we will be the ones supporting the composters and residents that those 7 partners, along with Grow NYC, have been supporting to date. But yes, as Andrew said, we do have resources at the Department of Sanitation. We still have the online tip sheets and other educational materials, and we're looking into how we're going to make sure that those are continue to be available and widely promoted throughout the year. But it surely is a big loss.
Thank you. My frustration is extreme on this matter because it seems, we're the Waterfront Parks and Environment Committee, and we don't often have a lot of environmental issues that we can advocate around other than asking for things. And so that this was the first item across the board on the chopping block was rather alarming, given the fact that we're still lining up at farmers markets to buy produce, and yet at the very place we would drop off that compost, you can't do it anymore. So is there any potential for drop-off sites, not the curb at all, or that's completely been eliminated?
Well, as of now, much of the funding seems to be eliminated out of the draft budget. what I will say is that over the past 2 years, we expanded the number of food scrap drop-off sites that are listed on our map at sanitation. Hudson River Park Trust is running some of those drop-offs, and the way we did that, we didn't have funding, but we had a goal to add about 60 more sites. And we had been funding at that time in the beginning of 2018, we started doing this, 97 sites that we were funding through our partners, the ones I just mentioned, and also Grow NYC. So we opened up the community hosted food scrap drop-off program. So if you've seen those big orange square signs that say public food scrap drop-off site, we created those as part of that program for volunteer run sites to open up to the public and accept food scrap drop-off sites. And if they were open regularly, like 6 consecutive months of the year was the minimum, and then at least once a week at the same time every week, then we would list them on our map. So there, I should have it in front of me, but that makes those sites, it's approximately 60, I believe 60 sites right now. I will double check that if you'd like. Those sites can technically, we were not funding them. I know that we would be happy to list them on a map when we're out of the emergency response mode and when we make that map active again on our website. However, I do want to acknowledge that there are major concerns about those sites being very overwhelmed, especially given the suspension of the curbside composting program. And also another key factor is that many of those sites were actually able to run public food scrap drop-off sites because they were enrolled in curbside composting service. And so a lot of those sites, I think especially in Manhattan, they also were not, they weren't making their own compost. They were running the drop-off site, but then sanitation was collecting. And so realistically, it won't be all of those sites opening back up again.
Right. Any comments from the committee? And I don't see any from the public. Blake.
Yeah, one thing I just wanted to mention is that, under Alan's leadership on ACEs, we came up with a survey that we surfaced to block associations about the Department of Sanitation cuts, specifically looking at for data around the priorities in our neighborhood for these cuts, and giving us some other data points and verbatim quotes to help to advocate for this. So, maybe that might be something, obviously I defer to the chairs here as well as Alan, but, it might be something that we can incorporate some of that to, voice our support for these programs that, I totally agree are completely vital.
I certainly would entertain that. And I was going to ask the committee if they'd be okay with a letter formalizing our concerns that this citywide composting effort was so aggressively cut as a whole, and perhaps we can incorporate some of what ACES has put together as well in our letter. Leslie?
Yes. I was going to ask you, Jeffrey, is this going to be coming up in the budget task force meetings, I guess, like where the priority is? And
I wonder if that's the appropriate thing. We can just fold this into our budget question, because that's certainly going to be coming up. But we've also never sort of formally, this was a part of as they appropriately pointed out, a part of the emergency action around COVID response. So, it's sort of like when something's there, it probably stays, but once it gets taken away, Yeah. So I'm of the inclination I would like a letter on this out of the committee if people would be okay with that. Marty, I think it should go to the administration with a CC to the speaker and the sanitation commissioner.
So the question is, where does the funding come from, and how much funding does it need? We have to be talking to people who are involved with the funding.
I guess I just want to register an objection that there are many other things that the Department of Sanitation is responsible for, including street sweeping, and that seems to have no problem roaring back to life and then turned back off, ad hoc. So listen, I'd be writing the letter. So if we don't want to do it, that's fine. We fold it into our budget asks, but I'd like direction accordingly. Sally.
Yeah, so I, sorry.
It's okay, you're fine.
Okay, I agree with the letter writing. I think we should do it because you're right. Once it's gone, it's gone. And I think that we should propose some sort of a compromise. I mean, I know it's expensive and I know about COVID and all the budget cuts, but if we could just salvage a semblance of it where we have pickups at certain locations versus just wiping the whole slate, that's meaningful because then it's easier to revive than instead of just killing the whole program. Once it's killed, it's killed. So let's keep it alive where we can, as economically as we can, until we get through this time, and then we can restore it to where we'd like to see it restored, but that it's not dead. That's what I would like to see in the letter.
That sounds good to me. Alan, something to add?
Yeah, just to follow up with what Blake was saying, we have a survey going out. Hopefully, I think it's gone out already to Black associations and some other community groups. Perhaps if we get some quick response, we can fold in some of that information that we get from the community in terms of the letter that we send to the administration, to the Speaker's office.
I'm fine with that.
I don't know how soon you want to get the letter out, but I think.
I mean, to me, this was to be through our normal process, right? Of like, let's do this now. Let's bring this up at, you know, and have the letter voted on at the full board meeting. So maybe the survey wouldn't incorporate, but I really like Sally's suggestion that I think I'd like to package into a motion if you guys would entertain it. The idea of a compromise that while we recognize the need for budget cuts across the board at all agencies, this was an aggressive first hack at a very green, important initiative that had seen really great growth over the years. And that we'd like to see some of the funding restored to provide some greater access for compost drop-off.
Okay, so we'll just throw you the information, and if it's in time for your letter, we can add it on to it. Okay,
great. And Blake just posted the survey in the chat, so thank you for that, Blake. Sally, you're okay with that motion? Is there a second on that? Thank you, Leslie. Any objections?
I would like to discuss.
Sorry, Chris.
Is there a possibility on this letter to acknowledge? I'm sorry. Is there any possibility to acknowledge that we would like funding for composting be done, but that whatever plan comes into place keeps into mind the very seriousness of COVID, right? Like having mass density at a drop-off area is incredibly dangerous. So like if the SNY and the mayor is to revive this to add money in, that the plan also include opportunities for like social distancing.
Sure. I'm fine with that. JD, did you have a question?
I'm opposed to this letter. I like Leslie's suggestion of wrapping it into the budget task force. I really think, given so much we all have to deal with, including sanitation, that I don't think this letter will be received with quite the import that we take it. So I'd rather it be incorporated into the budget task force. I think that's more effective. So okay. I'm against the letter.
Thank you. Noted. Any other objections, Sally?
No, I'm not objecting. I'm fine with. I don't care where we put it. It just has to be put out there.
Exactly.
It's fine. It's okay in the budget letter. We should put it in the most appropriate place where it's going to get the attention it deserves. I'm not looking to necessarily make a separate letter, but I just don't want to see us kill the program. There was a time when the program was first implemented, before it was rolled out, when we could just go to the green market, and we could just go to a few places, and then as it became more and more popular, it was rolled out. So let's go back to phase one, or as minimal as possible, to keep it alive. Where the letter goes is to me secondary. If it's a suggestion to make it go in the most appropriate place where it's going to get the most attention, that's what we should be doing.
Well, if the committee would indulge me, as the former second vice chair of the board, I recognize that issues like this get put pretty low on our list, quite frankly. in the budget. So I would ask that we do write this letter separately and likewise request that it be included in our budget request as well. So I'd like to move forward on the motion. I have one objection. Any other objections to the letter? Any abstentions or present not eligible? JD, I appreciate the grin and likewise the objection, but the letter passes. Thank you all. Our next item, and thank you to the Department of Sanitation. I know this, my aggression was not at you, as obviously you're spearheading a program that's getting taken out from under your feet. A very fast update on, so thank you guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeffrey.
Thank you.
Absolutely. On Pier 76, you'll recall earlier this year, it became a flashpoint for the governor. The Hudson River Park very quickly put together a task force. Unfortunately, right as the task force was coming up with recommendations, a pandemic hit. The task force has since been put on hold, but the board, myself, and Lowell have certainly been keeping it, the toe pound on NYPD's radar, and we are continuing to expect updates from them accordingly, given the fact that the governor has as a part of the budget, has deadlines in place for relocating the operations of the pier as they relate to the toe pound. Wasn't hoping to have discussion on that, so if everybody's okay with that update, I'd like to move to the next item, which is regarding another of our piers in the Hudson River Park, access to Pier 86, which of course is inherently tied to the Intrepid. We all know the museum and pier in Hell's Kitchen. That pier was closed as a part of the state being put on pause by the governor, given the fact that we are clamoring for public space and how crowded Hudson River Park is. We were alarmed and upset by the fact that this pier was closed. And while we recognize that it's in a sense tied to the operations of the Intrepid, we were no less pleased by that. It's also been our long understanding, the Intrepid had a lease with the city long before the Hudson River Park existed, and they have long been renegotiating a new lease with the park. And so we thought it was appropriate to sort of bring this issue up this evening. And I believe the president of the museum is joining us tonight. And the Intrepid also submitted a letter to the committee, which was in the Dropbox, that explained their position, reasoning for closing the pier, and likewise with what they're responsible for as it relates to Pier 86. Before I took any questions from the committee, I want to pass it over. Susan, you're on. Thank you for joining us this evening and for your patience. So wanted to give you an opportunity to address some of our concerns. And you're on mute.
It was very profound how I started now. I appreciate it. And I just first and foremost hope everybody in yours around you are all healthy and safe. And I have to start out by saying, I totally understand this conundrum. I don't come at this as, we're this big steel ship and there's anything that we should have over anybody else. The Intrepid has been impacted and our family has been impacted. Our Intrepid family has been impacted just like everybody else has. And as part of the executive order, we had to close the museum. And along with that comes the pier. As you probably all know, we operate the pier, we maintain it, we insure it, we staff it, we provide security, we provide bike path crossing, all of those elements that allow the pier to be active and open to the public and to our visitors. So under this executive order, though, we also had to follow allowing only essential staff and the most minimum amount possible in order to secure the premises. So as you may or may not have seen, the parking lot across the street is locked up. Nobody can enter, nobody can exit. We don't have security over there. We are using the security for both the pier and for the ship. And unlike other areas of the park, unlike other piers, HRPT does not, Hudson River Park does not provide any kind of staffing for us. And so in order for us to protect both visitors, whether it is just to the pier or to the ship, and protect our staff, we have that minimal amount, and we cannot maintain it now. We cannot do what we need to do to make sure that it's safe and secure for anybody to come on. So that's the impetus for it being closed. And we are working towards reopening like everybody else is. As you know, I am sure we're in phase 4 of 4 phases. Once the pause is unpaused in our area, and we're going to do everything we can to make sure that we can bring it back and open up all areas as soon as possible.
Thank you for that, Susan, and thank you for the letter. A couple of hands going up. Lowell.
Hi, thank you, Jeffrey. Part of my concern about this is that, you know, more and more, I mean, we've been trying to work with the Intrepid for a long time to make this seem less like a private pier. But this really hit home for me that it really is a private pier. It's open when the Intrepid says it's open. It's closed when the Intrepid says it's closed. Admission is through the Intrepid's metal detectors. We did finally get the exit moved so you can go onto the pier for nothing without having to exit through the gift shop. But this really is a private pier. And at this point, you know, what bothers me about that is not that the Intrepid has a private pier, but that the Intrepid does not pay rent for their private pier. The other, Jeffrey, I think you have the slide. Do you have the slide accessible from the working group? The other people who don't pay rent for the pier are the community boathouse. And I think that's, I don't even remember who else it was, but it's people who are not making money doing this. And I know the Intrepid is a not-for-profit, but Susan, you're dealing in a lot bigger dollars than the community boathouse is. Every other pier, even not-for-profits, Bob Townley's group downtown, the Manhattan Youth, pays rent for the pier. And, you know, I understand that, you know, visitors have dropped off to the Intrepid and, you know, your revenue is not going to be what it's like. But, you know, frankly, between the Intrepid and the Trust, I'm more concerned about the Trust's finances than the Intrepid's finances. And I'd really like to see the Intrepid, since you basically have a private pier, paying for a private pier.
Will you allow me to address a couple of those points? Because it's actually an elephant, I feel like, in the room that is so long overdue to address. And I appreciate your bringing all of that up. And you know,
that's up to Jeffrey.
I'm fine with a response there.
I appreciate that. Just a couple of points. You know, we have felt that has been the perception, right? Yes, we pay $1 a year. There's no doubt that in the typical sense of rent, that is what transpires between us and Hudson River Park Trust. But unlike other piers, I don't think what is recognized is that we pay over $400,000 a year out of our operational budget. And that is strictly for maintenance of the upland, for security, not to mention $1 million of insurance that we have to pay ourselves, that we do pay the bike path folks, that we do pay for the utilities, and all of that comes out of our own pocket. And so that's about $1 million a year to maintain what is that 100,000 square foot pier. So it's all on us. Part of that whole deal of building a pier for the mooring of the Intrepid was that we would operate, maintain, and pay for those costs going forward. And I know you know that there's a new lease you'll shortly be seeing. There are additional expenses we're paying for. We're going to be paying for what are going to be marine repairs now of the pier, and we're going to be paying for a part of the Hudson River Park that we don't even have any rights to, for repairs to that and maintenance. And so that is, I don't think that's been known or recognized. And I just want, I guess, to be able to say that in lieu of rent, it is an expense that Hudson River Park does not have to pay. And so they may not receive direct dollars for it, but instead they're not paying for it. And we are upkeeping this pier in its own right.
Jeffrey, may I?
Sure.
Well, JD, did Jeffrey recognize me? You know, part of it, Susan, I understand what you're saying, but take, for example, Pier 57, which RXR has a master lease for. They are responsible for the entire upkeep of the pier. Now, I'm not saying the Intrepid should pay what RXR is paying in rent, for the pier, but I think there's probably somewhere between $1 and whatever it is RXR pays or Chelsea Piers pays, where they're responsible for those piers, that would be, would help the trust's finances immensely.
Well, but we are a not-for-profit. They are multi-billion-dollar companies. I mean, not Chelsea Piers, but Chelsea Piers is a for-profit company. We are, and you can look on all of our financials, a $35 million company. Now, we're also a zero-based not-for-profit. So any monies that we make over and above the expenses that we have goes right back into serving the community with programming. And just I want to paint a picture, but we had over 1 million visitors last year. We just cleared 1 million visitors last year, 10 years in a row. And we had 150,000, 146,000 to be exact, visitors who came on the pier for free. And now we also have to, and I know the MAGS has been a big challenge and a big issue, but I just want to quote something because I wanted to bring this up if I had the chance. And that is, the New York City Police Department did a security and vulnerability assessment of our pier, of our property in 2016. And I quote, "An active shooter, hostile takeover, or detonation of an improvised explosive device at the museum would cause heavy casualties and collateral damage because of the museum's location and number of visitors on any single day. The perceived affiliation with the military and indirect relationship with veteran communities and other at-risk groups further increases the risk of a hate crime incident or an act of terror. The volume and density of visitors combined with the physical constraints of the facility also adds to the risk." That is why we want everybody to go through the MAGS. And we worked together, you and I and Dan, when we walked to the pier and we walked to the Welcome Center, to try to make it as seamless. We said that whatever is the shortest possible line that is out there is where people who want to go for free can enter. Signage is there. We move the signage according to what is the shortest line, and they get a ticket that says free access, because that is also for insurance purposes, and it gives the disclaimer that they're going onto the pier. And so everything is done with a purpose of safety and caution, but we spend a huge amount of our budget, a large portion of our budget, maintaining and operating that pier. And we also, we have also spent so much time fundraising to build that pier. So we raised $60 million in 2006 to 8. We spent $10 million of our own money to redo that pier. We've raised $8 million to build a cogen plant so that we can take down that gross structure of a heating and cooling tower on our pier. We already implemented that, and now we've raised $4.6 million to take down that cooling tower so we can open up 4,000 square feet more of parkland, which is under that, and rebuild what is still wooden piles under that, and make it the concrete piles and more open space. So we're raising money that's designated strictly restricted monies for the capital projects to open up space. We're trying to protect the visitors, both those who want to come onto the Intrepid and just onto the pier. We offer free amenities on the pier, Wi-Fi, we have a cafe, we have a free exhibit on the pier. So we're doing, we think, and this is said with humility, we think we're doing everything we possibly can to try to engage and bring in the community, on top of the fact that we have in the community that we offer free programs out to the public, and we ask the public come on to us. Free Fridays, astronomy nights, movie nights, festivals. Come on and have a plethora of activity and content for free. So this is killing us that the pier is closed today. I mean, we all want to go back there. And I understand if the summer is coming along and rolling along and we need open space, I mean, we're going to have to try to figure something out for everyone's mental health. We get that. But I hope there's a better understanding of the significance of the dollars we spend to make the pier better, to keep the pier safe, to open it up, and to protect all of the people that are coming our way.
Thank you, Susan. JD? You're on mute.
Sorry, I understand your concerns. I'm sure we all do, but I have to ask, since the Intrepid came in, it has been a dispute with the Intrepid and the community about the public access. It's gotten a lot better now, but you still have to go through to get onto the pier. I go there now and then to see how it works, and it works well. You've made improvements. But I don't understand this. This is a public pier. The side is a public pier. And are you saying you cannot, how can you close a public pier? It's not your pier. So I'm just, help me out here.
It is the way that our agreement is with the Hudson River Park, that we have to maintain it, we have to insure it, we have to do all of that. And during this,
I'm asking, who closed the public pier?
Well, we're under the
That
guidelines.
side, I'm just talking about the north side. It's a public pier. Who closed it?
We, under the guidelines of the executive order, consistent with closing the Intrepid, had to close the pier because we can only allow, excuse me, wait 1 second, as a byproduct of who we are allowed to have as essential workers there, we cannot protect the public. And we would be liable if you tripped and fell because it hadn't been swept and there had been gravel, or there was a puddle and in this crazy weather there was ice under that puddle, you would be suing us for that. And we have nobody there to take care of that ice for that moment.
Okay, that's not my issue. I understand what you're saying. I would suggest to Jeffrey and Marty that we raise the concern that a public pier has been closed because the Intrepid apparently says they cannot have maintenance to open it. I don't know of any other pier publicly in the Hudson River Park that has been closed with that rationale.
I don't know if there is and I don't know this at all, so I claim ignorance if there is another entity that relies on their day-to-day operational business revenue. So while we have fundraised to do all the capital improvements, we rely on our operational revenue to pay for that. And we are at zero right now, zero.
Susan, I understand, but it was part of the original agreement with the community that that would be an accessible pier. You have to maintain it whether or not it's open or closed. So I just am asking Jeffrey and Marty that we examine this a little further. It's been and I understand Susan's a lot of pressure and a lot of concerns. I understand that. At the same time, I think the board should insist that this public pier not be closed out of a concern that suddenly they can't maintain it as they did before.
Not maintain, not protect it. We can't protect people on there right now. And as soon as we can start bringing our team back, that is when it can be opened up again with the appropriate protocols.
I understand, Susan.
Thank you for that, JD, and thank you, Susan, a lot for walking us through that and painting, quite frankly, a very full picture to your point that hadn't been aired in a long time. One of the things that is, I think, distinct about the situation is the fact that the Intrepid couldn't exist without the pier, and our Hudson River Park couldn't exist without its piers. And the Hudson River Park, whether it's the way that it was created or not, needs revenue to exist. And we have long been advocates of our park, and it always seems to come across as us, disliking the Intrepid. I actually don't think that's the sentiment that the committee has ever wanted to express. It's unfortunate the way that this tends to play itself out, because we recognize, we've had presentations of you guys in the past around your CASA school programming, the number of folks in the district that have memberships, and we totally recognize the arts and cultural value of the institution, not just in New York City, but as the country as a whole. Our focus has always been about public access to the pier. And so, JD, I think memorializing your point is important. And I also think just recognizing that as the Intrepid is continuing conversations and looking at a lease with the Hudson River Park, we can air what we think might be an appropriate thing to consider in the confines of a lease around access. Chris, I saw your hand just go up, but I think I wanna steer clear of any, dislike. I'm not sure of the right word. I'll find it when we're writing the letter, but to really clarify on this, what our thrust is here. Chris?
Yeah, just to piggyback on Jeffrey and JD and Susan, most importantly, we understand what the Intrepid means, what it means as a living memorial to the greatest generation, or victory over fascism. Right now, we're in an incredible space. I took a bike ride for the first time today after like 2 months, and I went down to the 9/11 Memorial and it was open. We were there. It's a public space. I understand wanting to protect one of our nation's like identifying markers of greatness, but at the same time, we desperately need park space. And I've always said we desperately need park space. So whether or not it's the northern portion of that pier or the entirety of the pier, protecting our residents here in Hell's Kitchen from overcrowding and potentially starting a second wave of infections is a priority, not just, for this community board, but for the entire city. So it would be nice to have Pier 84 open, especially as we get greener and bluer days while we're locked down. And it doesn't seem like the lockdown is going to end anytime soon. So Jeffrey, you're right. I think we should memorialize something in a letter or make effort to ensure that their next lease doesn't make them feel as if the onus is on them in case there's an emergency like this ever again, to shut down something that we desperately need. We know we need. I mean, I've seen it on your social media, but we've been calling for open streets. We need more open spaces.
Yes, thank you. Brad?
Yes, I believe Noreen is still here. Maybe she could comment. And then we have the electives on the line. So I'm wondering what their thoughts are.
Hey, hi. Yeah, I am still here. I'm sorry. I'll let you see me too. Hi.
Noreen.
I am still here. I think that the fact that Hudson River Park is responsible for ensuring or doing the best we can to think about people's safety does matter. This point Susan is making about how do you let people onto the pier when there is no staff to facilitate that there, it's a different pier. It's not a landscaped park pier. It's a pier that was landscaped, basically for lots of people to come onto it, principally for the purpose of the museum, but also for views and other things like that. So I do think that that is a nut that needs to be solved no matter what. And I think that that is a valid concern for Susan and the park to suggest needs to be considered. Everything exists within the context of a history. I mean, I've been to many meetings, Susan has too, where we know that Community Board 4 has, and this is before my time, before Susan's time, when the Intrepid came to the community, the promises that were made about public access were inherited, at least by the trust. And we want as much public access as we can have. That is our goal. I mean, before everything else, we're a park. We want that to happen. The circumstances of the closure and everything else like that are not easy, and like interpreting what is essential, I mean, JD, I totally hear your question. I really do. But I also think that the physical configuration of the Intrepid and everything else like that isn't the same as like if we had closed, I don't know, Pier 84, right? I mean, they're the expectations when you get onto a pier that has lots of stair towers and other things like that were designed to be able to get people onto the Intrepid are different. And from our own perspective, running security, we would have to look at things like that. Where do people hide? Where, sight lines, all those things we talked about for Pier 97. So I am not the business person at all. Susan can vouch for me on that, on anything to do with the renegotiations for the Intrepid lease. I do know, having worked once for Community Board 4 a long time ago before the park, that this is a long-standing issue. How do we get public access to the park? So my only comment at the moment is that I understand kind of what you're all saying. It is, people want and need more open space right now. the park is under enormous pressure for that. You all know the crowding problems that were the poster child of excess crowding for you know, in the COVID era. And, you know, we can talk with the Intrepid for sure to see what's involved in this. But I don't have an answer for you, Brad, or anyone else here right now, other than to say that I think, you know, we're hearing both perspectives. It's the best I can say.
Thank you for that, Noreen. Lowell?
Now, I get all of the issues about access. I understand that, you know, Homeland Security says the Intrepid's a potential target and that you need certain security there. I'm at the point now where, you know, we've done everything we can. Susan, I know we've worked with you before. I think we've done everything we can to make this as public as we can. To me, it comes back down to the money. If there are other not-for-profits paying rent for their use of the parts of the park, and you know, let's just talk about the not-for-profits, Manhattan Youth, the boathouses, they're all paying some kind of rent. I don't understand why the Intrepid isn't.
JD, I saw did your hand intentionally go back up?
Very, very briefly, just to address Noreen, all I'm suggesting is that the board get involved in these discussions about that pier, that it does not become a fait accompli where we have not really discussed the access to the public pier. This is a long-standing issue. I appreciate what Susan's going through. I think we all do, but I think we need to be involved, Jeffrey and Marty, in the discussions about how to resolve this.
Thanks, JD.
Thank you all for this. Any other comments from the committee? Alan?
Thank you, Jeffrey. So the two issues is access, which is security, and then there's the money situation. Maybe it would help to understand what Susan was pointing out in terms of what they pay out and what other sections of the park don't pay out. If it isn't an overburden on the trust, if they can do an analysis for us, what people are paying and what they're not paying for, instead of someone saying, well, we pay this, they don't pay that. If we can get maybe a spreadsheet, maybe something simple, just to point out what other sections of the park are paying in rent and getting back from the trust in terms of maintenance or whatever, and see how that compares to the Intrepid Pier. And then this way you can see where money isn't going or should be going or isn't going, and you can, you know, highlight what the real numbers are. The security issue I think is very important. I think it's something that maybe until things straighten out, maybe folks have to live without having access for a while. We all have to make sacrifices. Again, that's something the trust has to work out, I think, with the Intrepid in terms of getting access for the public. I mean, the trust has to be secure that they're securing the public, and the Intrepid has to, you know, be forthright in saying in terms of what they can do and what they can't do. So we've got two issues here, but I think the money thing, we maybe, again, if it's that a burden in this time for somebody in accounting to come up with something so we could see how it lays out on paper in terms of who's paying what and not. Thank you.
Noreen, is there anything on that?
We have the rent information relatively readily accessible, but as Susan said, there are other, you know, who's responsible for maintaining the piers, who's responsible for other aspects of security or whatever that vary from place to place, that is not quite as readily accessible. So I will say that, that information would all be public. It probably will take us a bit of time to assemble the full picture instead of just, you know, the rent part of it.
Okay. I'm not seeing any comments or questions from the public. Any other questions from the committee or comments from the committee? So some of this seems to like it needs to be memorialized. Certainly JD had a suggestion around that. I am interested in hearing what you'd like to have be a part of a motion. JD?
I'm sorry, you asking me, Jeffrey?
Yes, do you have something?
Yes, I would. I suggest we write a letter to the Hudson River Park and Susan to express our appreciation of the Intrepid and of Susan's steerage of the Intrepid, and that we are concerned about the closing of the public part of the pier. And we'd like to sit down and talk about it and discuss how to reopen it without harm to the Intrepid. It's something like that, mainly a discussion, and also perhaps involving the Hudson River Park lease. I think Lowell's concerned about that as well. But I'm just suggesting we thank the Intrepid, we say how much we appreciate them, but we'd like to talk about the public pier.
Okay. Blake, I see you nodding. Anybody else on that? In that regard, and that as a whole, we are interested in not just the short-term reopening of the pier, but figuring out ways to both make it, I think, to both Noreen and Susan's point, a safer pier generally, not just the hardscape that it is today, and how that can be incorporated in any consideration given in the negotiations ongoing with the Intrepid and the Trust.
Jeffrey, and we are cognizant, aware of the difficulties the Intrepid is facing providing security. We're aware of that.
Okay. Anything else on that, folks? Is there a second on the motion? Thank you, Chris. Any objections? Abstentions or present not eligible? Okay, the motion carries. Susan, thank you for duking it out this evening and staying with us till 9:30. We really appreciate it. And I think, like you, we just as much want phase 4 to happen just as quickly as phase 1 can. So best of luck and thank you very much.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Take care. Final moment of the item on the agenda, though Alan did ask to bring up a point of old business that I think we all hope is short. With regards to the budget, the mayor has already made considerable cuts to this year's. We're operating under the current fiscal year, which ends at the end of June. We start a new budget at the beginning of July. Those discussions and the budget hearings are actually ongoing right now. I think it's important for the committee to think through a number of things. I know we raised the compost thing, but there have been multiple articles around in the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, as well as others around the devastating cuts that the Parks Department is going to be facing just in the time of when we will most desperately be needing our parks. We all know what that means, whether it's a reduction in pruning, of weeding, of security, all that kind of stuff. So besides those two items, and recognizing, I don't know if we want to prioritize what type of parks ask we want to do based on our other asks, but is there anything else that the committee would like in our sort of more urgent budget items? Gwen, I see you had raised your hand. I'm sorry about that.
Do I have mine up too?
Your hand is up, yes. Comments?
I just wanted to say I hit the wrong button last time and didn't get to vote, but I'm voting for both of them.
Okay, thank you. Any other, we always ask for our comfort stations, and we ask for, we put Hell's Kitchen Park back on the map in terms of a renovation. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I've been ticking through all that. I think the Parks Department's budget is about, I think I read 590 million, and there's already an $84 million cut on the table. which is massive.
Well, everybody's got that now, you know? I mean, it's not
I'm not
like,
disagreeing with that at all. But what is
Yeah.
our priority? Is our priority park safety and security? Is it general park maintenance? You know, tree limb pruning, garden maintenance, sports fields. I welcome thoughts on that. Otherwise, we will, I think, repackage what we've done in the past based on the priorities that we've done in the past, and sort of, you know, keep those as they are.
yeah, sounds good.
I don't see any other hands.
Jeffrey,
Yes.
briefly, what's going on with the green space at
Chris, I'm having a real hard time hearing you. You're all split up and very far away, even though I'm in meatpacking and you're in Hell's Kitchen. You want to try that?
I think somebody else is also on the.
I'm still not getting that. Do you want to throw it in the chat box?
I will throw it in the chat box. I'll type it out.
Thank you. I heard you'll throw it in the chat box. So with that, everybody, we'll, I guess, repackage and, you know, just highlight our long-held priorities around our parks, waterfront parks and environmental asks in the budget and the budget task force. Alan, you said you had some old business.
Okay, thank you, Co-Chair. I'll make this brief. But I did want to say I haven't been to the park in quite a while since this whole crisis. I was there for that big weekend in May, which everybody heard about. And I just wanted to give a shout out to the, before I start, I want to give a shout out to the staff of Hudson River Park for the condition that the park is in. It is in absolutely beautiful shape. Given the circumstances that they're working under now with the limited schedule and everything else, the guys are doing a wonderful, wonderful job. And if we can write a letter thanking them, I think we should, but if not, I'm sure Noreen can pass it along. But there was one thing I had missed when I was out there on that beautiful day. It was the sound of the helicopters. So I think we don't want to take our eye off the ball on this. Yes, Mr. Kern. The last time I was there was about a month and a half ago or so.
You're so right, Alan. You are so right. I haven't heard. It was limited activity there, but there was still choppers on the ground idling for a considerable amount of time. They were still coming in very close to the walkway at the southern end. I think there are still safety and security issues. Due to some prodding earlier this year, the aid company did start to implement some safety features where they would have somebody watching the cars coming in over the walkways and the bicycle paths. We did a letter back in November about our concerns. We haven't heard anything back on that yet. Maybe we should follow up. But perhaps going forward, since things are going to start getting busier, hopefully in a positive way, I'm sure a Blade will start activating again with their helicopter runs. Perhaps we can have with the park in terms of what their protocol is going to be to safeguard people on the walkway, on the bicycle paths, and securing some of the issues in that site. So I won't take up any more of your time, but I think let's not forget about those birds. Thank you. And please, Noreen, tell the guys they're doing a wonderful job.
Alan, thank you very much. I mean, I will say that I have been in the park a few times. I'm going in once or twice every 2 weeks, and the park does look great. And thank you for noticing. Our Hort staff is so proud of it. They're so protective of it still. When they couldn't come back, when we were on our most skeletal staff. They were like itching to come back. Every single one of them is worried about their particular area and the weeds growing and everything growing. And they really want to be there. We do have more people, field staff starting to come back now. And we appreciate you noticing. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll be there volunteering soon.
Safely though. We got to make sure it's safe.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Lowell. Alan, sorry.
Alan Lowell.
Yeah. A lot of L's. Chris, the point on DeWitt, that was just returfed last year. I can tell you it looks beautiful, and I'm really happy, even though I complained about it being done over Memorial Day weekend last year. That lawn is in stellar condition, and it's been pretty remarkable to watch that park transition from an active play field to a picnic and sort of very passive, massive field given the ban on active sports. With regards to cruise ship measures, I don't know that the committee's purview is to tell it shouldn't be soliciting sales for tickets right now. Does anybody feel that is in the purview of the committee? You know, we had talked to, Marty and I had conversations with EDC around shore power and specifics to cruise ships, but obviously that was, Marty, I think it was 4 months ago or 25 years ago is what it feels like.
Listen, it was 20 years ago that I started that.
Fair, Gwen, totally fair on that point. So, Chris, I definitely recognize the concern. I think it speaks to the lack of education around the issue, not necessarily the cruise ship's desire to you know, make money.
Yeah, no, it had nothing to do with that. It was more about the health and safety measures they're taking when they egress and ingress on the ships.
I guess it just, yeah. I don't know that it's germane. If the majority feels strongly, obviously it's a committee, we can do that. But it's I guess we could write a letter on that to the, you know, airlines, I guess, too. So it sucks, quite frankly.
Well, it does. I mean, first of all, we're the environmental committee. What we ought to be doing is commending everyone for the less pollution. We have so much less than we had before all of this happened. I mean, we had much, much more, and now we have incredibly less. If you've looked at the maps of the pollution, it's amazing.
Absolutely.
Hey, Jeffrey, I wasn't going to bring this up. I'll just throw it out there because it's gonna come up in a few months anyway. I've been talking with Brad's office and then some members of some local block associations about getting the cruise ship getting into the electric power to plug in.
So Leslie, that's what I was referring to with regards to shore power.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So
Marty and I had
Go ahead. Sorry.
Marty and I had a conversation. I think it was back in December or January that the Sunday Times did a big expose at the Red Hook terminal. Gwen brought it to the committee's attention. Many of us were on it. Marty and I had a discussion with EDC around it and the specifics of developing a shore power plan at the Manhattan Cruise Terminal. Of course, this was all pre-pandemic. And I think that it would be appropriate to bring this up in next month's agenda as a formal item, and we can ask EDC to come forth accordingly.
Well, I'll email you separately because there has been some behind the scenes movement on that as far as.
Yeah, I had requested legislation on the topic as well.
So, okay, awesome.
Perfect.
Great. Thanks.
Okay, Alan, I see you grinning, so I'm going to take that as a motion to close out this meeting. I want to thank everybody for their patience, for their diligence, for their willingness to look us all like Hollywood squares and try to find the camera at the same time.
Love the gorilla.
And it's the gorilla. With that, everybody, as they say, thank you and good night.
Good night.
Bye, guys.
Stay well. Be safe.
Thank you. Take care. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
night.